Here's Brooks, getting the edge. Brooks. Touchdown, Texas Tech.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Sanders breaks contain, fires it down the field, and caught by Travis Hunter.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Better 3 for 5 here so far today. Looking in zone, looking for Burden.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Hampton wide open running, 30, 25, 20, 10, 5, touchdown Carolina.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Milroy steps up in the pocket. He's going to take off with it, and he's getting the first down and a lot more. This is what he can do. Milroy might have scored.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
This is going to be returnable for Cal. Out across the 20 and out into the open field. And all the way down the sideline, that's Ott, Jaden Ott, who's been returning kicks lately. Touchdown, Cal.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
Welcome in. By the way, in case you're wondering, yes, I am wearing a hat. We'll talk about that in a second. We have a new sponsor to introduce today, but just want to jump right off the bat. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. Smoak, you'll be out for the next week or so. We're not sure, but Craig, you were with him all weekend. I went and watched the PGA with him yesterday and brought him some food. He's doing great. Everything went about as well as it could have. Am I right, as far as the surgery and finding everything? So Smokey's doing great. We missed talking to you guys last week, but we got a lot done. You see our fancy new graphics package that we have here, not to mention things you can't see. We gutted and cleaned out. There's a lot of junk in the studio, Craig. A lot of junk that we cleaned out and did that. We do our spring cleaning every year, and that was that. But glad to be back. And Smokey is he's on the mend and doing pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, for those that are just randomly tuning in that normally don't, he had some surgery last week, and so that's partially why we were out for Thursday and Friday, as well as the spring cleaning, as you mentioned. But he is doing well, and I guess better than expected, knock on wood. Think he's pretty much in the clear at this point. It's just a matter of, pain tolerance and just some of the getting around part. Going and doing 3 hours of a show doesn't sound like much, but you actually do exert some energy, and, you got to keep up your talking and all that, and I don't know if he's quite ready to do that just yet, but he will be sooner rather than later. So, yeah, I'd expect that, I don't know, by next week would feel like a very fair bet. Maybe, I don't know, we'll see, but I definitely think by next week he should be back. If not, I don't want to promise anything sooner, but I wouldn't be surprised if, like, Friday he came rolling in here. But we'll see how it goes. But, yeah, I just thank everybody who was, praying or, hoping for the best as far as the surgery went. So it went well, and yeah, we're moving on along. And just thank everybody for that. But, yeah, studio looks great, nice and clean. There's definitely a lot of junk that I'm sure was easy to identify and get rid of. But it all looks good, and glad to be here. Yeah,
I also cleaned out the trash. We've been having a gnat problem in here as well. So I cleaned out the trash cans. Little Mr. Wizard vinegar and baking soda action, which is always, you can clean anything with vinegar and baking soda. Honestly, I'm not sure why people don't clean up crime scenes with it. I don't know.
Maybe they do.
Maybe they do.
It's not our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Unless it is, and then that's a weird secret to be keeping.
Yeah, absolutely. So would like to welcome our new sponsor, Black Rifle Coffee Company. They sent us some gear. So, Craig already had his hat for the day. So his hat is over there waiting for him. You can see it on his side of the set. We've got some of their coffee right here, a couple hats that they sent us for for us. So a really cool company. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Black Rifle Coffee. I had a meeting with them last week, and they said that we're about two things: helping vets and awesome coffee. And I thought that was that's a great mission statement. And they're veteran owned. They do a lot for veterans. And, I'm the son of a veteran. You're the grandson of a veteran. Smokey's the son of a veteran. I'm the grandson of a veteran too. So it's very important to us as a group to align with companies who do share those kind of visions for the world and helping out veterans. And so Black Rifle Coffee Company, welcome aboard. And there is a link in the description below where you can click on and get Black Rifle Coffee Company. And we appreciate if you do that when you go to our sponsors whenever you can, is in the description on the site. All right, Craig, we have a lot to catch up on because we were not here on Thursday and Friday. And even though, look, it's kind of hard getting guests this time of year. We have 3 today. Matt Brown's going to talk video game and NCAA settlement with us. Mark Carnival is going to talk to me about the PGA and Xander Schauffele's win, which I did watch at Smokies yesterday. It was really exciting. For the tournament to come down to a birdie putt on the last hole. The last guy is really a heck of a thing to see right there to avoid a playoff. And then John Machota is going to talk about Cowboys and their mini camp coming up this week, or I don't know what they call them now, but mini camp that they have on Wednesday and Thursday, and why the Cowboys are such a mess right now, at least on the outside looking in. But first things first, the NCAA settlement proposal has ruffled the feathers of the Big East and the 22 other non-A5 conferences. Insofar as, here's a tweet from Pete Thamel, in that the A5 was going to pay 40%, or A5 named in the suit, which still includes the Pac-12. They were going to play 40%, and the others were going to pay 60% because I guess in the A5's mind.
That backwards. The A5 is going to play 60%.
Well, nobody's happy with it. The other 22 are not happy with this. They think that the money should come from other places. So they're not happy with the splits at all, especially some of the ones that don't have football, which is really what this is about. They're upset about how this settlement went down, or how it could go down. The Big East was kind of one of the louder ones about it, saying that it's not fair to each of them to have the same kind of per school limits or per conference limits that are kind of mathematically the same, even though most of this is about football. And the Big East is a conference full of teams mostly without football. So I don't think any of them do. I mean, like Villanova and all kind of schools don't have them. So they're objecting to what the settlement will be. I don't think there's really anything they can do about this, but this is a letter and a group that 22 other conferences are all kind of in alignment here, saying they're not happy with the way the settlement's going down.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, Villanova does have football in the CAA, but that you can understand from the lower level, I guess, leagues that are not sitting there with the autonomy, and I don't mean lower level disparagingly, but just, you know what it is, the non-A5 conferences, and really, remains to be seen if you're doing the autonomy. It's still the A5. The power part of it, though, is more of a P4 at this point, and some will argue it's a P2. It doesn't really matter. We're kind of splitting hairs, but for the point of this discussion, I think that if you're a school, especially that's a part of a league that doesn't play basketball, you're wondering, why am I paying so much of this tab when so much of this revolves around the back payment of, yes, athletes in general, but particularly football, because that's where so much of the money's come from. And so you've suddenly found yourself, without really being a part of the negotiations whatsoever, just sort of being blindly led by people in power who claim to have your best interest in mind, but really just seem to be looking for answers to end their problems, and then how all that trickles downhill they're not really too worried about, because it doesn't sound like many people were consulted about this, particularly at the lower levels. So, they're racing towards a solution of some sort. You see the articles nearly every day now that are, pushing it along down the track seemingly towards closure. And even though it's not the end-all, be-all answer that many people want it to be, it is at least a temporary solution to some of the problems ailing everybody. So it's exciting on that front. But then when you stop and look at like how it actually gets done, the schools involved have every right to go, wait a second, what are we on the hook for? what part of this did we agree to? When did we say that we'd be up for paying this percentage of the payout? When did the Group of Five or the FCS or anybody for that matter outside of the Autonomy 5 agree to this? I don't know when they did, and certainly based on the reactions, they don't seem to have felt like they made that promise. So, yeah, you're seeing some pushback in 22 leagues that aren't a part of the A5, according to Pete Thamel, just saying outright that they don't support the model proposed by the NCAA for allocating back damages, which unreasonably impacts their conferences. They don't make a lot of money, man. They don't have money to just freely, willy-nilly spend. And so, yeah, I can understand where there is definitely some pushback and some concern about what this looks like for them. I think with the Autonomy 5, there's schools that are worried about what that looks like for them, so you can imagine what it must be like for schools another notch down. So, yeah, I mean, the A5 are still going to pay the bulk of that bill, but again, especially if you're like the Big East and you play basketball, like why would you feel like you have to pay some quote-unquote fair share when football's not a part of your equation at all? So that doesn't seem to be that surprising. But, they say in that complaint that we believe more than 90% of the back damages are attributable to A5 student athletes. So that would fall at the feet of the power conferences. And if that's true, then even more reason to push back and say, look, if we're only responsible for 10% of the back pay, how are we getting way more than 10% of the responsibility when it comes to the actual payout? So they laid out their reasons, and I think they're valid. I don't know how that gets responded to. I don't know like what the jostling is like when it comes to the negotiations, because I'm not even really sure who's negotiating and taking the lead anyways. All I know is Ross Dellender suddenly started coming out with articles saying that there's an agreement and a settlement in the House case potentially. And, I don't know how exactly though all that works in terms of who's making the decisions and who's agreeing to such decisions. So, yeah, that's an interesting piece of this. But, as we've seen time and time again, they sort of get shouted down or just muted eventually. I don't know if that'll be the case here because so much money's on the line, but it is an interesting next layer to this settlement that seems to be, rolling downhill, and it's just one of various, cases that they are trying to navigate right now.
Well, so the funny part about this is, so the proposal as it looks right now is 40% of the Autonomy 5 would take 40% of that. Now, the NCAA has a big chunk of this as well that they're going to pay from their reserves and different things. The Group of 5 has 17%. The FCS has 22%. The IAAA has 21%. And so the combined non-A5 would be 60% of that deal. So when I said 60-40, so they would like to flip that to where the Autonomy 5 have 58% of the total reductions, and then 16% to the Group of 5, 15% to the FCS, 11% to the IAAA. So that way, and look, their numbers look where the total loss of revenue spread out is kind of better for everybody except for that top group. Really, there who would go from losing just 0.61% of their revenue to 0.88% of their revenue. And so that's a lot of numbers, but that way everybody's revenue loss is the same across the board, especially considering that, like you said, Craig, 90% of the athletes that we're talking about here are A5 athletes.
Yeah. So, I don't blame the schools for pushing back whatsoever. In fact, I'm pretty much on their side, as far as this goes, because, I don't see where they're really in the position to, or where they got an opportunity to even, really make their case. It just seems like this thing got started and started rolling downhill when people thought there was a little ray of sunshine that maybe could solve some of their problems. And I don't know how much consulting there was along the way, but this likely is just another measure or step in the separation, if you will. And I don't mean the separation as far as like a super league or anything like that, but just between those autonomy schools and the schools that don't have those powers. Long talked about that, there's going to be your class of basically rule makers and those who just abide by the rules, basically. And as we've gone along, we've seen there is a distinct separation, particularly with the autonomy schools and those non-autonomous schools. So I think you're seeing more of that, and another example of that here. And where that leads ultimately, I don't know. But I mean, the only separation that seemed to get talked about the most is the Super League, and I don't think that's the only separation we're going to be seeing here. I think it goes beyond that, and I think it is a separation even further of the autonomous schools versus everybody else. In this case, 22 non-FBS football conferences, and that's 22 conferences that do not play football that are on the hook for a lot of football money. It's not just the Big East. It's 22 conferences. 22 non-FBS football conferences. So non-FBS level, not just the Big East, we don't play football, but those that don't have a table. That's a lot of schools, man. So, interesting to push back and to see what the response to that is, instead of just, I don't know, if you're those in power, maybe expecting them to just say, all right, we'll bite the bullet. But we kind of talked about this last week that, I don't know, you just kind of assume that everybody's going to have their checks ready to pay up and move along and just be ready to go on to settle the next thing. I don't know how feasible that is for every school. And I can see where there are schools involved where no matter how little the check may be compared to what Ohio State's going to have to cut, like, that's still going to affect them. And with Ohio State, they can cut a big check and still be okay. Or Texas or A&M or whoever, they're still going to be fine on the other side of this, and they'll make up that money in no time, whereas, some of these are going to be, like, they're going to matter to some of these other schools, and they don't have a check coming right around the corner that's just going to, fill the coffers back up once again. So, there is something to sort out here. The quicker this House case can get settled and just move on to the next thing, I think the better. But I don't think it's just as simple as it has kind of been made out to be based on some of the reports of how this has gone so far.
Yeah, by the way, I'm told I look too serious in a hat. We'll see.
It's a different look.
It is a very different look.
I don't know about too serious. I haven't thought about it that much, but okay.
No. Yeah, I mean, mostly I reserve my hat wear for the weekends. When I really like to cut loose.
Right.
So, no, I like, it is, if there's no greater, like, indication that the big conferences have been taken over by corporate America, in that they figured out a way to make people who don't do what they do pay almost as much as they're paying for the same thing. Like, this is on you guys. I mean, it's the House suit is, yes, it's about all these athletes over this time within the statute of limitations, but was not brought because of Kennesaw State. It was brought because of the SEC and the Big 10 and the Big 12. That's why the case was brought. If everybody was on the financial model that the other schools were on, we wouldn't be talking about this. None of this. If that was the model, as a matter of fact, if you look at what the FCS and how their budgets operate, they kind of operate how it used to be. Like, that's what, college athletics was. There's some good money here and there, but for the most part, like, that's not really, a huge, gigantic revenue, life-changing driver like it is in the big conferences. So for them to, like, push some of this off is pretty brilliant corporate strategizing on their part to try to get it by, but they are going to, be hit with some resistance. And look, if there's enough people that can make them, switch up a little bit, and look, these things go back and forth until there is a settlement. So I wouldn't be surprised that, those numbers go down for the smaller schools and go up a little further. Maybe not to this proposal that they sent, but,
Yeah, I mean, just figure it out. I don't want to sit here and try to sort through their issues that they created, but, the NCAA is on the hook for whatever they're on the hook for. The big schools, I think should be okay in the long run, even though I think some of them will still be affected. And then the smaller schools, while I am saying I understand the pushback and, feeling like you're just kind of being handed a demand of, like, hey, here's the check you need to cut without even really being consulted on that. At the same time, you aren't guilt-free here as far as the payment of players and back pay and things like that. So it's not as though you have no responsibility whatsoever. Like, you've been playing in this system as well as everybody else. The dollar figures haven't been as high and the revenue hasn't been as high, but that doesn't mean you haven't still benefited from the system being the way that it has been for all of these years. So, yeah, there's some monetary value that you need to hand over yourselves, but as far as the jostling over what exactly that looks like, I don't think we've seen the end of the bickering as far as that goes, but will it be enough to quell the settlement as a whole? I find that highly unlikely because this is so important to everybody. So hopefully, this little sliver of the various chapters that are in play right now can get resolved and we can move on to that next thing. And there are many next things. But, I don't blame the non-autonomy schools for pushing back a little bit on the dollar amounts.
While another thing what happened while we were away, and something much talked about, the EA College Football 25 has the official release date of July 19th. And as teased by Matt Brown the last time we had him on the show, we're going to have him on again today, there are 3 cover athletes from 3 different schools that play 3 different positions. You've got quarterback Quinn Ewers from Texas in the SEC, cornerback wide receiver Travis Hunter from Colorado in the Big 12, and Donovan Edwards, running back Michigan from the Big 12. On the other cover, they had the big deluxe cover, which had Jalen Milroe and Carson Beck, and I think Quinshon Judkins were in that one as well. And I'm probably leaving somebody out, but they were also on that deluxe. But Ewers, Hunter, Edwards on the cover. And Garrett, did I get, when we did the triple option, did I get 2 or 3 of these? Because I didn't think Donovan Edwards.
Yeah, no, you got 2. You guessed Quinn, and then you went with
Hunter,
yeah.
Travis Hunter. So I got 2 out of the 3, especially based on the context clues that Matt gave us. So, and look, that's going to cover a huge amount of the fan base and, of people who know, who the athletes are. So, so that news is out. Craig, what do you think about the cover?
That's about what I expected. I think I talked through the same thing. The only one that was surprising was Donovan Edwards, just because he's not really a major producer, but they won the national championship. So, I don't find it surprising that they wanted to stick Michigan on there somehow or another. But yeah, Ewers seems like it was when he started breaking down the hints of like they're different positions and they're not from, the way that Matt laid it out there, we kind of talked through that. I remember that day, and yeah, came to the conclusion that Travis Hunter seemed like a pretty good probability for the Big 12 because Ewers just seemed like he'd be one of the stronger quarterback candidates. And if you're not going to have multiple quarterbacks and it's from different leagues, well, it made sense that maybe you'd have Shedeur on there, but Travis Hunter, because he covers a couple of different bases, just made more sense as a wide receiver and as also a defender. So you got a running back, you got a quarterback, you got a dual threat guy there in Travis Hunter. And so, that's exactly how Matt laid it out, that it would fall. And, Travis Hunter's a high-profile guy, so representing Colorado in the Big 12, that choice makes a lot of sense. Ewers, I figured he would be on there all along, even though he's not necessarily like a massive star just yet. It's Texas, it's the SEC.
He's the quarterback.
He's
of
the
that
quarterback.
Team.
It just seemed like a no-brainer to me when you line up a lot of the other potential options. There's just not like, it's not like there's a Caleb Williams, so to speak. That was just like the no-brainer type of a guy. And so I think Quinn Ewers makes a lot of sense for a couple of different reasons. And then again, Donovan Edwards, that was, we knew it was going to be a different position. So where else were you going to look? Running back makes sense. And he's not, the best running back in America, but he's on the defending national champs, like I said. So I'm not somebody that's going gaga over the game and every little detail that's been released and like following all the accounts that have popped up that are, covering the news. I'm going to get the game. I'm not going to line up on day number 1 or I don't know, maybe I'll pre-order it. I'm not sure. I never was super into it to begin with. Like I never played a lot of it growing up. My friends did, and I watched hours and hours of it as a result of just hanging out with them. But I am excited to see it. I'm excited to get my hands on it. But you won't find me with like the 10-year dynasty that's, like super deep into it as others are. But I'm excited for those people. I know how much it means to certain people, and for them, I'm excited, and I'm still excited about certain things like seeing the cover and what that looks like. So, I thought it was fine for what it was. It didn't blow me away, but I don't know that anything was going to really blow me away based on the options at hand.
Yeah. Also, I only thing I'm mad about this is that we had to wait a decade in between, and that in that decade I got married, and I'm gonna have to come here to play it. Yeah. So, other than that, I'm plenty excited.
Had it come out earlier, you might still not be married because you'd be too busy playing the video game.
So, God closes a door, he opens a window.
Exactly
I guess.
Right. Yeah. Exactly right.
I'm excited about it, and we're gonna do. We have plans to do some cool stuff with it. Where we're gonna play online against each other. We're gonna play online with you guys if you want. So we've got cool things afoot with this as soon as the game comes out in July.
Yeah, and I liked everybody trying to figure out, like, oh, is that my team's helmet there in the distance? Like, oh, we're on the cover. And it's like, yeah, there's like a shade of like a Baylor helmet or an Iowa helmet or whatever. Everybody trying to like squint and see. But, yeah, you had Milroe on technically on the cover and you know, Beck and various others. So they Judkins was on there as well, I think. So they pretty much crossed all the or checked all the bases that you could have expected to try and cover as much ground as possible. But yeah, that's cool that we're gonna have some content coming from that, and I'm sure a lot of people will. I bet there's a lot of people gearing up for NCAA football content here in the next few months on Twitch or wherever people are watching video games. YouTube, obviously. I'm sure that we're gonna get quite a bit of that. So look forward to us dabbling in it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, a story that I'm kind of not shocked to see happen. Florida State is petitioning the NCAA to rescind their penalties related to NIL recruiting violations. If you'll remember, back in the spring, they were the first school to get, at least football school team, to get penalties for NIL violations because their offensive line coach Alex Atkins drove. Who is now NFL player, Amarius Mims, drove Amarius Mims when he was in the transfer portal and being recruited by Florida State before he ultimately decided to go back to Georgia, drove him to a meeting with an NIL collective and dropped him off and said, all right, we'll have a good time with these guys. And that was one of the rules that they apparently broke. And if you read through it, you'd be like, man, sounds like stuff that people do every day. But again, it was a violation of the then rules. And then, Craig, it wasn't really like 2 weeks later that the Tennessee and Virginia lawsuits came down. And look, the Tennessee's NIL flew Nico Amaliava on a private jet, which is, a lot nicer than any car. So like they were kind of in this sticky wicket, and I kept wondering, like, well, why would they agree to these penalties given that, like, again, 2 weeks later, if you just kind of read the tea leaves that this was going to blow up no matter what, that was going to sit there, but they did. So they've now petitioned a court to have the NCAA rescind those penalties, and we'll see how that goes. I do wonder, if the NCAA has any, like, just you agree to it, like, we'll just leave it here. But, Florida State's spending a lot of time in court these days, so just add another log on the fire.
Yeah, this is by far the least interesting court story involving Florida State. This part I don't give a damn about. I know you as a fan do.
I just think it was kind of an interesting story that, like, 2 weeks, like, 2 weeks later, that,
I get it. I get why it's interesting. I think this is just far less interesting than their actual other court battle.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, absolutely.
I wonder, like everybody else, how much teeth the NCAA has, and it's been proven time and again that if you fight back a little bit and you have some part of your case that's reasonable to fight back on, which seems to be a lot of them these days, then why not fight back? And odds are that you'll get those penalties reversed based on what we've seen. So I think it's a smart and prudent move on Florida State's part to challenge that decision and to see what they might get taken back as a result of just what we've seen so far. So, what was the major part of those recruiting violations that really stings them?
Alex Atkins' suspension for a couple of games, for some time.
Yeah, that for sure.
That for sure. He's the offensive coordinator and offensive line coach. And one that's already passed, which was they didn't have some recruiting days this past spring. So they've already lost some of those recruiting days, but they got to spread them out over a little bit of time so that you take, if you have 15, you take 5 here, you take 5 here, you take 5 somewhere else. So I guess they're going to try to get those other 10 days back. So those are the two. Again, nothing that was going to cripple them or keep them from winning games necessarily. Yeah. Maybe there's recruiting day in there that was the one day they could have gotten this one guy that would have been a game changer, but I don't think it really comes down to that in most things. So,
well, you want your scholarships, even if it is like just a couple here, a couple there in any given year, you still want to be at full strength. So it seems like a fight worth pushing back on based on what we've seen up to this point. So, that doesn't seem all that surprising that Florida State especially – while we're here, let's go ahead and throw this into the fire as well. Like, we're already at the law offices. Let's go ahead and just put some more hours in.
Yeah, honestly, it's like it would be like smoking a joint like on the street the day before like the legalization goes in, and the guy's I'm going to arrest you now.
Yeah.
And you're like, tomorrow it's
it's one of those things where rules are rules, so I understand. But, yeah, I mean, at this point, this is like the least of anybody's concerns, I think. And, we'll see, I guess, where this takes Florida State. But in the big picture, I mean, I think you feel pretty confident you could probably get these reversed, and even if not, it's not a major hindrance to you. But I mean, there's probably a pretty good chance you can get those penalties reversed. And I'm not a lawyer; I don't pretend to be. Y'all know my feelings on that, but I'm not surprised. I mean, this is like the Reggie Bush Heisman thing, and all these retroactively looking at certain punishments compared to now. You can see where Florida State's coming from.
Yeah, no, I think it's. It was just kind of silly in the beginning. And when you look at it, it's like these little victories the NCAA gets, and you're like, okay, well, what did they do that was so egregious? And it's like their coach drove a guy over to a meeting. Like,
right.
It really doesn't seem. And look, we had David Kay on from Baylor the other day, and if you have not seen that interview that we had last Wednesday with David, it was very long and it was very expansive on all the different rules that go into these things and how universities now have general managers and liaisons and things like that. Yeah, those are the kind of things where, like, wouldn't you kind of want your coach to know kind of what's going on there? Like, you've set up this rule that now you kind of made it shady than it had to be. Like, if you were going to make this all legal, then just, bring it into the sunshine completely, as opposed to like what they tried to do with these rules, which was, okay, we want to keep the same spirit of the NCAA in the last 100 years, but we now have to make this legal. So we're going to try to keep this weird, invisible dividing line of like what's acceptable and what's not, when everybody has no idea, like it's just such a strange thing. It was just their perception of what is good and bad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there were definitely teams that knew what they were.
Oh, I don't know. They know what they're doing. You
knew what you're doing, so I don't really feel sorry for them if they still get spanked with, but at the same time, like, everybody was doing it and all that. I don't know. It just seems like such a drop in the bucket. Like, for Florida State fans, I understand why it matters, but big picture-wise, like I said, it's the least interesting story involving them, and it makes sense to do what they're doing, so good luck to them. That's – good luck to them. If they get those scholarships back, then, yay for the Noles. But beyond that, we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's take our first break right here. When we come back, we'll go through some of the things in the rest of the world.
Like Michael Alford talking. Did you see that with Dusty Dvorak and what's his face? Your old quarterback that
Danny Cannell?
Yeah, Danny Cannell. I just totally blanked on his name. I saw a clip from that interview. They asked him about his future conference affiliations, and so there's more of that out there in the air as well. We'll
talk about that next. Plus, I want to get Craig's opinion on the Mavericks are in the Western Conference Finals against the Timberwolves, and maybe a new era and that we'll talk about that very briefly. But Craig's a Mavericks fan, so exciting times, and a statistic on the city of Dallas and their pro sports franchises, which are all going great. All 4 of them. No questions about it.
Oh, yeah.
All 4 have similar trajectories right now. They're so close. It's not even a joke that we're going to tell in this next segment. But when we come back, we'll talk about Michael Alford and what he said to Dusty and Danny. This is 365 Sports.
Memorial Day sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco is pulling out all the stops with incredible deals you won't want to miss. Picture yourself behind the wheel of a sleek and powerful 2023 Dodge Charger or Challenger RT. Right now, you can drive home with a whopping $14,000 off MSRP. That's right, $14,000 off. How about a 2024 Ram 1500 Limited Crew Cab 4-wheel drive for $11,500 off the MSRP? That's right, $11,500 in savings only at Allen Samuels of Waco.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
And
Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Casasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Casasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back. 365 Sports, Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. And again, if you're just joining us now, Smokey will be back, we'll say in a week or so. Also, thanks to today's show sponsor, Pin Paws. They're for pet insurance. So as a now former pet owner, is very important, and it'll help your pets live longer when you have pet insurance because it can save you money. Craig, why don't you jump us into Michael Alford, because you had that up and I needed to listen to it again because we've been, again, you see this gigantic new graphics package, I'm a little bit behind today. So
yeah, I mean, Michael Alford, there's a clip going around. I hadn't listened to the whole interview. I just hadn't had the opportunity to do so yet, but he was on Sirius and joining Danny Cannell and Dusty Dvorak on their show, and they just flat out asked him. Obviously, Cannell being an FSU guy has a lot of interest, and Dvorak is a Sooner now in the SEC. There's obviously some interest, I'm sure, just as a college fan on his part as well, but also just that's a team that definitely sees eye to eye with a Florida State and would be interested, I think, in the possibility of that being another team that joins them in the future or joins the other big league. But they just flat out asked Michael Alford, Florida State athletic director, about the future for Florida State and the ACC and just what kind of all that looks like. And he said that you look at all your options, or I guess the example that he used was that you run out every ground ball, and he used baseball to kind of break it down. So you run out every ground ball, and that's what they're going to continue to do. So basically, they're looking at all their options, continue to look at all their options, and are going to exhaust them until they get where they ultimately want to be. But they want to be in one of those two conferences. I think that's very clear, and that's not anything surprising or new news. So in running out those ground balls, one of the things that he mentioned is that the revenue gap that's already here, but that is coming down the pipeline here and just the next couple of years is going to be so significant that there's really just not even an option for them if they want to compete at the same level they feel they should be competing at. None of that's new news either.
Yeah.
Like none of that is anything newsworthy really, but he did cite analytics and the growing revenue gap that's coming, about how the splits between the haves and the have-nots are going to get worse and worse and worse. And basically the big gist of what he had to say, other than just the obvious and kind of stating already what's known, is that his exact quote was, "You're seeing networks really consolidate the major brands of college football, and they want brand on brand being played against each other, and that's something that we see. That's something that we think is not finished. We think there's even more change coming in the upcoming years, and we are taking this day by day." So interesting that he cites the networks who are like, we are not doing anything. We're just, we're going with the schools want to say, and we know that's not the case, and they know that we know that's not the case, but they're far more heavy-handed in this than I think we realize sometimes. And so, if you're the networks, if you're those paying the millions of dollars to get the best matchups possible, you want the best matchups possible. I don't know, like big picture, like do you squeeze all the toothpaste out of that tube as far as the elite matchups go, and then you still want the other teams, you want the other games, but are you just going to like suffocate them with lower and lower pay so that there's like this really well-funded NFL-style group of schools, and then these other ones that are just lucky to be on TV that you pay peanuts, basically? Because that's what it feels like the strategy has become, kind of like with the whole ACC debacle is like, you're like, they certainly wouldn't get rid of the ACC, but if they could pay peanuts compared to what they're paying now and still have all of that inventory at their disposal, that's where you see them, if you believe in just the scheming that's going on, in the worst case scenario, you can certainly look at the networks and see where that would be perhaps a strategy for them. It's like, we get Florida State in the Big 10, and we get to have them against Michigan and Michigan State and whoever else, and we still have the ACC, but we're paying them half as much as we were paying them, and they still fill all these time slots for us. Like, something seems like it's going to have to give there if that were to be the case. But Alfred's saying, the networks want to consolidate further. There's more change coming in that regard, and they want brands on brands. So he did say that this is not what he wants. He said that he wishes that we could go back to 2005. He says, "I really do, because I had a great experience, but times have changed, and you can't look back. You've got to look forward, and you've got to anticipate what changes are coming. You've got to prepare yourself and your institution to be able to adapt quickly and be prepared on the forefront for those changes." So everybody's looking out for their own hide as per usual, and as you should be doing if you're the Florida State Athletics Director, or if you're the Texas Tech Athletics Director, or the KU Athletics Director, or whoever else. But he does say he wishes he could go back to 2005, and I bet he does, because you didn't have to pay players. You didn't have half these lawsuits, or really any of them at that point, and everything was the old traditional way where, people like him got the bulk of the money and got to spend the rest of it on juicy facilities and didn't have to worry about lawsuit after lawsuit. But I do think that he doesn't mean so much that as he means of just like the harmony that we lived with college football just being college football still at that point, and not what it's turned into 20 years later, which is just a mutated version of that, and what its final form is, we don't even quite know yet. So I think we all wish we could go back to 2005, sans the players not getting paid. If you could somehow bring back the way 2005 felt, but have the players getting paid like they could have done all the way back then and avoided all this, that would have been great. But hindsight's 2020, and so everybody got fat and happy and waited until the last possible moment to finally fork over some dollars because they were forced to. So 2005 is a pipe dream, and we're never returning to that. But he does wish we could go back to that era. So that's all nothing earth-shattering, just more reinforcement of kind of what we know, that Florida State's looking to be a part of the upper echelon, so to speak, and they're exhausting every avenue possible to try and figure out how to do that. And everybody pines for the good old days when they didn't have to worry about all of the money and where it's going. But, like I said, those days are dead.
Yeah, they are. And it's really... it's sad in a lot of respects, and again, progress waits for no one a lot of the time. And I do like that he's not like, he said, we got to run it every ground ball. So he didn't say that, they're not under the guise of, because a lot of this stuff has happened with no, our full intention is to work something out with the conference we're in, knowing that, in the post-Texas OU world, that's not really how we work anymore, And I don't know if it was really especially if you look at the demise of the Pac-12, I don't know if it was really the complete intent of everybody in the Pac-12. I mean, obviously, Washington and Oregon, once they heard what they wanted to hear, left, So it was never really their full intention to work it out with the Pac-12. If it was, then they would have, right?
Right.
So, yeah, it was never – it was
No, it's one of those where you forced me to do this. Like, you left me no choice. I had to leave, and it's like you were already wanting to leave anyways.
Yeah,
you were waiting on the text message saying, you up?
Yeah.
And as soon as you got that, you were like, all right, peace out, and that's all it was. But before the fact, you wanted it all to work out. Of course you did. But as soon as, you got that text message, you were out of there.
I promise you that there was, if it was, if you're talking about, hey, Craig, who's that hot chick going to the prom with? And you're like, oh, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington be like, UCLA? Why not me? I'm good looking. I win. What have they done in football? Why do they want them? This is not a basketball thing, and that's been a long time for them too. I mean, what? That's how it reacted. And they're like, well, we're gonna be the best teams in the Pac-12. We'll get a TV deal, and then I cannot wait for the book to be written where everybody feels comfortable enough to just put all the cards out on the table, where nobody's worried about their relationships anymore, and that whole thing where it's we kind of knew, in January that this thing was over, as opposed to, right before it, as we've heard, oh, we thought we were going to have a deal right before. And you're like, man, how many of you saw that deal with the selling candy door to door and took it? The ACC's in that same spot right now. At least Michael Alford is not going out there saying well, we fully intend to be back in the ACC and do that. No, they really don't. I mean, that's plan X for them.
But the big difference, though, Paul, is that they're under a contract.
Yeah,
and that's the whole heart of the
yeah.
dispute, is that they don't have a TV deal that's coming up that they're negotiating. And if they don't get a TV deal, then everybody's free to go, basically.
No.
They are under lock and key based on what we know right now, although some will dispute that. But based on what we know right now, they are under lock and key for another decade, right? So, or a decade plus, actually. So that's where we are. We know that if there was a year remaining that they were negotiating with Apple, and you could put out all the infographics and everything you want to, but if that was the case, they'd already be gone, because somebody would have been like, oh, y'all are free next year? I know y'all are working on that new TV deal over in the ACC, but hey, if that didn't work out for you, you interested in coming over here? I think that would be like we saw this past summer, or we saw prior with Texas and Oklahoma, where there was a date on the horizon that was soon enough that you could theoretically make it happen and make it make sense. That was, I think, easy decisions for those involved. I think it was easier decisions for the Pac schools than people actually. I think that's a lot of I don't know, people wanting it to be that way, romanticize it all, and no way the Pac wanted to fall apart and all the history and all that. I think people were much more just business-like about it than the romanticized version of it all. But that's not the case here. There's not just a couple years remaining. There's not just a matter of months remaining for this contract. There are years. And so until proven otherwise, they are bound by that contract. And yes, there are people trying to shoot numerous holes through that thing and set it on fire and find any way to prove that it doesn't really exist and it can't be enforced. And if they can find a way to do that, then I think we know what happens. And it's that big lever gets pulled, and this all starts to fracture, at least with, a couple, if not, a couple of those schools. But that's the big difference here. So we know what their intention is. We know they want out, but it's one of those things where you're not allowed out yet.
Yeah.
You're simply not allowed. No matter how loud you yell, you're grounded. You can't leave. You are grounded. I don't care how much of a temper tantrum you throw. I don't care what you promise you're going to do if you don't get what you want. It doesn't matter. You signed this. You are bound by it. And so until they otherwise are not bound by that contract, or until they come up with a different solution, which is hundreds of millions of dollars, then it is what it is. But yeah, they're desired outcome has been made very clear. It's just not been pinpointed exactly where that would be, but it's a 50-50 choice. And so that's pretty simple. But there is this whole pesky matter of, you got to prove that you can get out of this thing or find another alternative. And so that's where we are, and that's where we remain. And the quickest solution there also remains a settlement of some sort. Can we get there? I don't know. Sooner rather than later. That's what everybody's wondering at the moment, kind of like with the Pac-12 TV deal. You know, everybody had their own opinion on it, but the main core of it always was, no matter what anybody wanted to say, of can they get the right TV deal? And in this case, it's can they come to an agreement, or can they prove that can they come to a settlement or agreement, or can they prove that contract is not what it turns out to be? And if they can, it's as simple as that. Then they are going to be free to go sooner rather than later. But there is that part of it that, I don't know. It might be enforceable, and it might be too much money to bite off for either, a Florida State, a Clemson, a North Carolina, whoever right now. And if that's the case, then kick and scream all you want, but it benefits the ACC none whatsoever to just be like, you know what, we're tired of hearing you yell. You go ahead and leave, and we'll just deal with it later on.
Yeah, and the thing is that, there's like two arguments on the TV network's part, on ESPN's part. It's like, couldn't ESPN get rid of this, reform it, make it cheaper, and then, funnel those schools to another place where they want to be and then make more money off of them? Or could you keep those schools anchored in the ACC and then be getting, some premier football matchups on the cheap, right? Like there's all those different thoughts of it. But yeah, this is a completely different thing. And I thought it would be a matter of time before somebody tried to challenge it. I just didn't think it would happen that soon, because it seemed like, maybe like 2 or 3 years in, to be like, all right, we've got to figure this out.
Once the Big Ten TV deal became clear and you saw how much money those schools were getting, you're like, oh, let's. I don't want to use the same examples. Oh, let's go Northwestern today. If Florida State's going Northwestern, we get it, like Chicago area, that kind of thing. But a lot of history. But they're not competing for national championships. We're trying to compete for national championships here. We're not bringing in the ratings like we're bringing in the ratings. They don't have the titles like we have the titles. And so once all that started occurring, and then the SEC TV deal and all of the other movement, and you start to see, we're like, oh. Well, the Big 12 is a solid conference, but they're suddenly without their big blue chips, and we consider ourselves to be amongst those. And we're watching USC and Washington and Oregon leave, and we're watching Oklahoma and Texas leave, and we look around, and we're the only ones on our same island that are like them still. So what are we doing? We got to get off this thing. And so it's just a matter of timing, I think, of those contracts, the realignment pieces, and then suddenly realizing, oh my God, we're on this island that doesn't have a future that's growing all that much because of the contract that we signed, and we're surrounded by a lot of teams that aren't quite up to snuff as compared to what it would look like on the other side of the fence. And in their opinion, the grass is greener, and the money's a lot greener too, and that's really the focal point of this entire thing. So, it's different in that the Pac-12, it was either or. You're getting a TV deal, or there's going to be hell to pay.
Yeah.
And they didn't get it in time, or it wasn't satisfactory enough. And so their arrogance, or what have you, or lack of a better offer, eventually brought them down. This is purely being played out in the courtrooms, and that's why it's so unpredictable. No matter how many times you hear, a guarantee of this is happening or that's happening, I don't think anybody's really able to do that right now, because it's in the hands of the lawyers, and we don't know how close settlement talks could be, or just how far apart those could be. And we have absolutely no idea whatsoever how any of these various courts that are involved are going to rule on these cases. So it is a fascinating story, and we know kind of what the end looks like in terms of what some of the parties want. But a timing part of this is completely unknown. It could be next week. It could be, later on this summer. It could be sometime next year, depending on how the contract kicks in and what ESPN decides to do. But it's sooner rather than later. Big decisions are going to have to be made. It's also, though, not as much on the forefront, I feel, though, as the whole Pac-12 debacle was.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take a break. We'll come back on the other side, and we'll talk about that NBA conference finals things. I wanted to get into it with you. And then I have a discussion topic about the college football teams with the most returning starters, and that's maybe not as valuable as it used to be in modern college football when you look at the list of the teams. And some of them are good, and some of them are not. So it makes you wonder, like, is it good to have returning starters, or is it bad, or is it case-by-case basis? But not maybe a statistical indicator like it used to be. This is 365 Sports.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Carry On Solutions is a full-service IT management service provider and provides professional services for businesses servicing clients in the U.S. and globally. They are authorized partners with Microsoft, Quest, Veeam, NetApp, HP Enterprise, and Cisco Duo. Whether you are outsourcing IT services, merging companies, or wanting to tackle cybersecurity challenges, contact Carry On Solutions. We are IT. Call or email Dave at 832-437-0138 or sales at Carry On Solutions. That's CARRION Solutions.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. And Craig, you are the resident Mavericks fan here. Look, and Garrett's a resident Stars fan. It's been a great week. Garrett, do you have the tweet from Robert Behrens that mathematically calculates this out here so that we can see that? Okay, so the Mavericks, it's been 0 days since their last appearance in the or reached the conference finals. The Stars just a day. The Rangers just last season, so 206 days ago. And the Cowboys, right there nipping at everybody's heel at 10,352 days ago. The last time they reached the conference championship. Now, Brad Sham, voice of the Cowboys and friend of the show, responded to this tweet and said, the Cowboys have 5 championships. The rest of them each have 1 apiece. So, again, there's different ways you can do this math, but things have turned around for everybody else, and the Cowboys still stuck in the mud on getting back to their conference championship game.
Yeah, I love Brad Sham, and I understand his loyalty. We talk about polishing a turd. I mean, I get it. He's right. They have 5 championships, but, man, the championship they last hoisted means that you had to be how old at this point to have watched that? Nearly 30 years old, right, to have seen that?
Yeah.
If you were just a little baby. So I was in, 95? So we're looking at 28 years old. You were born the last time if you were born the year the Cowboys won their last Super Bowl. So, yeah, it's been a long time. You got people who are entering their 30s soon that have never seen them win a Super Bowl. So I don't think they care too much about the 5-1 prior to them existing that they haven't been able to see. It's fun for bragging rights when you say we've got the most of, this many teams in the NFL. But they've been, passed up by a couple of franchises. The Patriots have passed them in that time. The Steelers have passed them in that time. The 49ers have had the opportunity to pass them in that time. Hell, the Chiefs might pass them here pretty soon if things keep going on the same trajectory. Fortunately, the Redskins, Commanders have stunk so that they haven't closed that gap between their 5 and Washington's 3. But the Eagles have started winning them. The Giants have won some in that time. So, yeah, I mean, it's a great time to be a full-board DFW sports fan. I root for all of these teams except for the Cowboys, and I don't dislike them or hate them, but I just don't root for them, and I never have. The Stars, that's just a default. I'm not going to pretend to be some huge hockey fan, but that's always been the team that I root for since they came to Dallas in the late 90s, and I went to my first hockey game. But I'm not hardcore about it like Garrett is. I do watch during the playoffs, so I'm happy for them. I'd love to see them win another Stanley Cup. That would be amazing. The Rangers, watching them actually win a World Series was the greatest sports moment in my life in the last, since the Mavericks won their title. And those two are right there in my top 3 or 5 all-time sports moments. So, yeah, it's been good living here lately. This postseason's been a lot of fun. These last few months have been a lot of fun. The only reason the Rangers' 208 days is even that long is just simply because they haven't had the opportunity to win another one yet. That's just naturally the progression there. And yeah, that leaves you with the Cowboys team that's just so far away from experiencing that, but watching now all these other teams around them in their city or their metroplex, so to speak, winning them. And so it's a tough pill to swallow, and it's just salt in the wound when you see everybody else winning because it's just a reminder of what you are not doing. And they've knocked on the door a little bit, but they haven't even been in the Super Bowl, as an appearance since then. I think that's as maddening as anything else. It's not even that you haven't won one. It's that you haven't even been in another one. You haven't even won another NFC title in that time period. So, yeah, that's just the way that it is. But yeah, it's good living for Dallas sports fans right now, despite the Cowboys drought.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just I don't like to see a number put on my pain. It's like watching, how many times have I broken my leg? 10,352.
I was wondering how many thousands they can add on to that.
Yeah,
I mean, how long are we talking here before the next one?
It's not. Look, you mentioned the Patriots. So, the Steelers, the Giants and, everybody who's, around them or, the same, the 49ers, they've all, had, before 1995 when the Cowboys won the last Super Bowl they were in, they all had ones before, right? The Patriots have won all of their Super Bowls in that time.
Yeah.
The Chiefs,
So it's not just the Cowboys, though. They've passed up nearly everybody.
Yeah, they passed everybody. So,
they did pass everybody, yeah.
But the Patriots won all 6 of those Super Bowls in that time. So, essentially, once every 5 years, even though that wasn't the exact math, but every 5 years, the Patriots got one. And the Cowboys are so far off from that. But I know you're fired up. I think it's going to be a really fun Western Conference Finals. The Timberwolves are great on defense. They've got I think the guy who's probably about to be the next dude in the league and Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns is a really good player, and Rudy Gobert, they've got a great roster. The Mavericks are clicking like they have in a long time. So Kyrie is Kyrie again, and every time he gets the opportunity, he's kind of shown out as well. Luka's one of the toughest dudes in the NBA, and places are all kind of banged up injuries. So that should be a fun finals. The other one should be fun, Indiana and Boston as well, although I think Boston's a little bit maybe ahead of the Pacers. But I think the Western Conference Finals is going to be a bare-knuckle brawl.
Yeah, I mean, we normally stick to mostly college football and NFL, but we like to just dabble a little bit, and I think it's timely to do so given what happened over the weekend. So, yeah, as a Mavericks fan, I'm thrilled and just very excited for this team. I mean, Kyrie needs to turn the on switch on a little bit sooner in some games and not, basically not do much of anything in the first half, only to, turn it on. I don't know how, sustainable that really is, right, is to just kind of flip a switch. But for the big picture, he's been great, and certainly not the guy that was smeared, and in some cases deservedly so. I mean, self-inflicted during his time in Brooklyn and Boston, a much different cat now than he was during that stretch, and it's been a lot of fun to watch that. I was expecting disaster just based on everything that we knew and some toxic locker room, and it's been far from that, and here they are in a Western Conference Finals for the second time in 3 years. So I've seen them here recently, so it's not a massive deal, but it does feel really good, and I'm very excited, although, yes, their opponent is going to be a handful, and I don't know really what to expect, although I do like this better than the Denver matchup. I don't know. I feel a little bit more confident that they can perhaps get their way to the next level versus Minnesota, but it's not going to be easy by any means whatsoever. Still, though, I'm excited as a fan, and on the other side, I know a lot of people bummed about the Knicks not making it to the finals, but they were so beat up, and then Brunson gets hurt. I mean, that was all she wrote. That was, even if they had somehow found a way in the next round, it was going to be just so unfair against the Celtics. So I think this gives us the most competitive matchups possible in the Final Four, and I'm looking forward to it. The Western Conference far more obviously than the Eastern Conference, but it's been a fun playoff run. It really has been. And I'm just sorry to Emory over there, Mr. OKC Thunder, that they are not moving on. But yeah, other than that, I'm very fired up.
Yeah, it should be exciting. All right, we've got Matt Brown coming in about 20 minutes or so, and I wanted to go through this. I saw this article, and it's from a month ago. I can't believe I didn't see it earlier, but I was doing some top 5, kind of research today, and it popped up. It's by Cody Nagel from 24/7 Sports, and it ranks the teams with the most returning starters in 2024. Now, this to me used to be a metric where you'd be like, man, they've got a bunch of starters coming back. That should be good for sure. But with the way that, it's kind of an interesting statistic in that the way that the transfer portal is, there's this revolving door of talent. But here are the teams with the most coming back. Number 1 with 22 starters coming back, Virginia Tech, 11 on offense and 9 on defense. And the kicker and punter on special teams are all back. So they've got, pretty much their whole roster from last year, which was better than it had been in years. Kyron Jones, the quarterback, back there. Oklahoma State has 21, and they came in second in the Big 12 last year. Iowa has 19, and they were very good, although times are about to change. Iowa State has 19. Nebraska has 19. Baylor has 18. Cal has 17. Georgia Tech has 17. And then there's several with 17. But you see where I'm getting at here. A lot of these teams were, Cal, Baylor, you're not that great. So is it the same to have returning starters back again? And I asked this for Baylor. I'll just use Baylor as the example because we know it the best. But is having 18 of those guys back good news or bad news, given the fact that they just weren't very good last year?
I think we're going to see this season.
Yeah.
I don't think we really know yet. The whole idea behind having all those guys back is that they were, for the most part, very young, and they will be able to mature and be better players moving forward. And as a result, the units will be better, and as a result, the team should be better as a whole because the defense is going to grow up, right? And the O-line is going to grow up, and the skill guys are going to grow up. It's just that you're banking a lot on a lot of different people growing up all at the same time and all panning out. And, in the meantime, some of that not returning experience or guys that you were hoping were going to pan out. So who's to say that these guys are going to pan out like you hope they do, and you're banking on that. If you're Dave Aranda, you have no other choice but to bank on that. But yeah, it's definitely not a bulletproof solution. It's not a guarantee that that's going to work out that way. For all we know, some of these guys might have topped out already. They might just be who they are. They might not be good enough, and collectively they might not be good enough. So I think it just all kind of depends on what trajectory you're looking at. I think if you're Oklahoma State, you feel great about having a bunch of people back that took you to a Big 12 title game and obviously didn't perform the way that you would have liked to ultimately in that game, but you had a really fun team, a really great player in Ollie Gordon, and some really good pieces around him that are all, returning en masse. And so I don't see any reason why, especially with no Texas to contend with or no Oklahoma to contend with, why would you not be super excited about bringing all that back? But that's why it's a case-by-case basis. I don't think it's just like, if you bring everybody back, you're automatically guaranteed success, and if you don't, you're not. So in the case of Oklahoma State, there's valid reasons to believe why they didn't really need to do too much. Baylor, they bring a lot back, and at least the explanation is, the youth part of things and just the number of transfer additions, all need to have some time to gel. They still brought in a lot more transfers again this offseason, and, is there really a major difference in being a redshirt freshman and a redshirt sophomore, to the point across the board that's going to mean that, the whole collective takes a step forward together? Or is it going to be a couple of them get better and then some of them are still kind of lagging behind? I think in their case, because you only won, what were they, 3-9 last year? Is that what their record was? I'm starting to get confused with all
3-9.
3-9. Yeah, there's some room for optimism, but there's also plenty of room to say, there's some good young players, but they're not that good. They're not good enough that you bring them all back. They're going to turn this into 6 and 7 wins against, the conference schedule next year. So I think it's all eye of the beholder. If you're Virginia Tech, you're excited about Kyron Drones, and you're excited about having a lot of those people back. Oklahoma State, like I said, you're excited about that because you've taken steps and gotten to a certain point where you're in a bowl game and you've made the postseason. If you're one of those, it's you got to double your wins to get there, and you're banking on a lot of it being the youth, and just that coming back's gonna be the key to unlocking those other 3 wins, or perhaps more than that. I don't know. I'm not as confident in that. So I think it's just an inexact science that depends on the eye of the beholder. And in the case of just a couple of examples I've given, you can see where it can go both ways. So. I don't know. How do you feel about it? I mean, I don't think it's an exact deal that, you see the rankings we're at the top of returning production. Bill Connolly came out with his list as well, not just returning starters, but the returning production. Yeah. And last year, Baylor, for example, was not very high in that, and that played out on the field. This year, they are much higher, and so that does give you some room for optimism, but I don't think it guarantees anything, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Look, Texas has 15 coming back. Alabama and FSU have 10.
They should still be really good.
Yeah,
because
and they should be really good because, and so Missouri is a team that's interesting to me because they just had their best season in a very long time, and they're returning a lot of production. The quarterback, Brady Cook and Luther Burden, and, they've brought in, they lose Cody Schrader, who's a really good running back, but they brought in one from Georgia State who's, probably going to fit in pretty well in Eli Drinkwitz's system there, so – you look at somebody like Kansas has 13 starters coming back, 6 on offense, 6 on defense, and the punter. So, but if Jalen Daniels is fine, it probably seems like the other 5 starters on offense aren't going to matter as much because he's the dude who elevates everybody around him. I mean, he's that kind of player. So it's different. Garrett, LSU, 13 coming back, and I would think that especially on defense, you're probably okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think when you have a star like Harold Perkins you could build around, it's different for them. They definitely need some help on the secondary. And you also, in their case, you're breaking in a new defensive coordinator, so there's more issues and layers there with that. But none of the production, the 13, nothing there really gives me pause that they're going to take a step back or anything. I think they're going to be fine, but I'm not expecting a big jump from LSU this year by any means.
No, it's just But you just know, I think people are going to be, there's some people that are going to be fine, some people that aren't. Like, it's just such a, it used to be kind of a weirder statistic, and now it's, or something you could like put your finger on. Now,
well, I think it's great off-season fodder, but in this era, it just doesn't matter as much.
It just doesn't matter as much,
Yeah, it just doesn't. I mean, like, there's no, I mean, what do all these teams have in common? Virginia Tech, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Nebraska. I mean, I think it bodes well, certainly for some of the Big 12 schools I mentioned, that they're going to bring a lot back, like an Iowa State, Oklahoma State. I think are in that boat of you feel great about that. Baylor says they are, and we'll see how it translates on the field. But I don't see Ohio State on here. I don't see Texas on here. I don't see
they're all down further on the list.
Yeah, and you know what? They're going to be at the top of the rankings because – yeah, they might not have a lot of returning production, but they recruited really, really well, and they hit the transfer portal really well, and and so they're not going to be necessarily reliant. I think it's a case-by-case basis. If you have one of those programs that needs to build more and you can maintain your roster, then that's great. If Dave Aranda wasn't on such a short leash, then I think you could really be optimistic about what this could turn into in a couple years. But in this era with NIL, it's just so hard to keep guys as is. I don't think it's an exact science. I do think, though, that, Iowa State should be better as a result of having a lot of guys back. Oklahoma State should be pretty good based on having a lot of guys back, but I don't think you can say that for every single school listed there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's a different thing for everybody, and again, I could scroll. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom of the list, and I guarantee you, I'll find a team that's going to be really good next year that has like 7 or Notre Dame has 9 returning starters.
Right.
I think they're going to be pretty damn good. Like they'll probably be really good, and it's not going to matter much. Riley Leonard's got good players around him, so they've got 9. Tennessee has 9. USC has 9. Michigan has 6. They'll probably be pretty good. Washington has 5. That's one I wonder about, because their whole thing is, that's
they got a new coach, new conference, new roster, historic run. Like, they shouldn't be as good. I mean, bottom line, like if they had, Michael Penix coming back and Roma Dunze coming back, then it also matters who are the starters.
Yeah.
Like, are we talking about your whole O-line and your quarterback and your receivers, or are we talking about like your tight end and your the left side of your line and the weak side linebackers, and like who are we talking about? Like, so it's just to look at it on the surface and in general of like, you've got this number of starters coming back. I think you got to dive a little further into the details, because Oklahoma State's returning production is a different story than Baylor's returning production, for example, and tell two different tales, and they're going two different directions, although they want to end up at the same place ultimately. So yeah, it's a fun off-season thing to look at, or a fun graphic, but it's not an exact science or formula by any means.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think. What do I have here? I think I'm out of stuff for this segment, Craig. So let's take a break. We have Matt Brown in like 14 minutes, and so this will allow us to get a break in before Matt, and then we've got a couple interview segments down the line. Also, maybe when we come back, Garrett can share his joy about the Stars in the Western Conference Finals.
We can do that.
All right. That's coming up next. This is 365 Sports.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Developed Backed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Welcome back. We've got Matt Brown in about 10 minutes here on 365 Sports. And Garrett, we talked about the Mavericks in that last segment, but you are our resident hockey fan here. As a matter of fact, we have, coming up here, Garrett's going to do a segment, right, on hockey?
Yeah, I was thinking about doing something called Puck Around, Find Out. And just do like a little overview of what's going on weekly and everything. Yeah.
All right. So like a little weekly hockey segment that people can find on the channel that he's going to do. So if you're into that, you can watch it. Garrett is up on hockey. Like I'm in a Preds house now, so I guess my household Stanley Cup dreams came to an end.
Yes, they did.
But the Stars, man, they're looking good. They're waiting on, which team from Canada they're going to have to play.
Yeah, so this is one where coming into the season, I think all eyes were on you were going to have to go through Edmonton to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. Right now, I think Vancouver's done a really good job of pressing them and forcing a Game 7. Unfortunately, you had the news come down this morning that Edmonton's leading goal scorer was diagnosed with a blood clot in his leg. He's having to have that fixed, so he will be done for the remainder of the season. If the Stars if whichever matchup, I would rather see Dallas play Vancouver. I think they would match up better. Edmonton is really loaded. If you go back and look, though, Dallas, to get to where they're at right now, you had to go through what I thought was arguably your worst draw in getting the Golden Knights, who defeated you last year. You had Pete DeBoer come over from Golden Knights to be your head coach, and then they knocked you off. You're able to bounce back and get that dub. And then you had to go through Colorado, who's your rival. Not only is it your rival, but you had to go through Vegas, who won the championship last year, Colorado, who won the year before, and now you're sitting here where if you find yourself in the Stanley Cup title, you defeated the 2 previous champions. So it's going to be intriguing. I think whoever they get out of the East right now, and I'm kind of leaning more towards the Rangers. The Rangers are really, really good. But that should be a fun matchup. But all things are going to go through Canada, like you said. I think that Vancouver probably falls tonight, and you're going to see Dallas have to go through Edmonton, which is going to be, in my opinion, the most difficult matchup to get there, but it should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Craig, do you watch any of the hockey playoffs?
I mean, I watch them, but I'm not like super into it or anything. Yeah.
No, that's when I kind of pick it up. I mean, I'll watch a little bit during the regular season, but yeah, there is something about the Stanley Cup playoffs that are just
Yeah, we hear this every year around this time.
Yeah, just I don't know. It's just so much fun. I don't know.
I know where you're going, but it's just like it's a yearly thing of hey, the playoffs roll around. Everyone's like, you know what? I don't really watch hockey, but those Stanley Cup playoffs are just fantastic, and it's like. Yeah, I mean, they are. They're great. They're amongst the best postseasons in sports for sure. But, I for myself, I'll root for the Stars. I got relatives that are going to be tuned in. But, it's not on the front page for me per se.
Yeah. By the way, there have been a few. I want to talk about the college players in the NBA draft. I love the way they do the draft process where you can go and look and, but now it's like this waiting game where all the college coaches have to see who's going to come back and not. And, there's kind of this nebulous thing going on. Only 5 guys have officially come out of the draft. And the biggest one being, and he, reaffirmed his commitment, but James Adu, who's was at Tennessee and is now going to play for John Calipari in Arkansas, he is officially out of the draft and coming back. There's only been 4 guys other than him who have officially come out of the draft, although I would
Jonas Adu?
I said, what did I say, Joe?
I said James, I think.
James, oh, sorry. Jonas Adu, I'm sorry about that. Jonas Adu, and he's out, and he's coming back in. Matt Brown just texted me, by the way, Garrett. He's going to jump on in a second. But there are some interesting ones still in there who could swing either way. Some of them we kind of just know are just in there to test the waters and see where they're going to be going forward. Johnny Furphy's one that I think is going to stay in from Kansas, but he hasn't made his decision yet. But we talked about him a lot last week. Craig was great. Osabor, who's on his way to Washington. He's still technically in, but he's got a good deal coming in Seattle, so I don't think he's all that worried about whatever happens with him.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose not. That's great news for John Calipari, though, with Jonas Adu. That was a big get. Thought that Baylor might be in the mix and get the double whammy of he and Jeremy Roach, and obviously we're not able to close the deal on Adu, and he chose the Razorbacks, but you still hold your breath a little bit, I guess, until that draft process is over. So, yeah, if that's the case, then that's definitely celebratory news for them. Not sure how much that was in doubt to begin with, but I think there's some cheers going on for certain fan bases when you see that your guys decided like, I don't like where I'm positioned. I'm going to go ahead and take that NIL money and play college ball. So it's that time of year, and very much looking forward to at least the lottery part of the draft, even though that's like all Europeans. I'm going to have to familiarize myself at this point. But, excited to see where some of the guys that we followed along with, like a Jacoby Walter, is going to ultimately end up. And, good for those schools who are getting some guys back. But that is always a big deal of those decisions being made on whether to stay, whether to go.
Yeah, Baylor did nicely rebounding and getting Norshad Omer instead. So I think that was a huge get for them. So, again, that's just a little bit of basketball news. Garrett, let's go ahead and take the break so we can get Matt queued up when he's in the room and ready to go. This is 365 Sports.
TexasBeefHouse.com marketing director had an incredible online auction, live auction, of course, in the month of April. There'll be another one just around the corner. But May, people start to get out on the grills. The weather's cleared up. You got a special throughout and some ideas for the month of May.
So May, we consider May, June, and July as grilling month. We've got our jalapeno and cheese patties, our regular Wagyu hamburger patties, our garlic links. 2 things that people aren't usually familiar with are our flat steak and flank steak. Those are a large piece of meat that you can cut up and eat with a fajita, or a lot of people will just cut it up and eat like a normal steak. This is our favorite time of the year because it's the perfect weather to get outside and get that grill going.
In the end, did you guys have another great auction? Did it all go well?
We had another fun auction. We had Wagyu brisket at this auction. It was phenomenal. We had so many customers that were so excited. They've given us their feedback on Facebook. We've got a lot of exciting things coming with a new platform that we've got going called Bid on Beef that we'll be releasing in the next couple of months. We're really excited about what the future holds for us.
TexasBeefHouse.com. No hormones, no antibiotics, no steroids. Premium grade East Texas beef from their pasture to your plate.
plate, they'll deliver it to you locally. They bring it directly to your door. Farm-raised Wagyu beef. May grilling month, May, June, and July, and there's not a better place to find what you want to put on the grill, whether it's hamburgers, flank, or flap steak. Samantha, there's always that code to get a discount.
Yes, absolutely. Use the code SICK'EM10, SICK'EM10, and get 10% off your order of $100 or more.
TexasBeefHouse.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sick'em 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Welcome back. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak awaiting Matt Brown here in just a second. And Craig, Michigan is now the latest school to allow alcohol sales at the Big House. I feel like they're going to really cash in there.
Yeah, I guess that's probably why they're doing it. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, they need a little money. I'm sure they're scraping by on all that they get, but they're going to allow alcohol sales now. And we are now joined by our good friend Matt Brown, Extra Points, with us. And Matt, great to talk to you. Great to see you there. And now that the EA Sports News is out, how much did you breathe a sigh of relief? Because you had a lot of this information you knew from all the work you've been doing on it, especially the cover athletes, that you can okay, good, it's out in the world. I don't have to worry about, walking into a room being the guy's like, oh, you're just going to be on the cover? You're like, no, it's Quinn Ewers. Ah, crap.
Right, which I feel like we almost did, right? The last time that I was talking with you guys, I think I might have accidentally slipped that there's three dudes, right? There was definitely some element of relief. I'm not able to say everything that I know yet. And one of the things that kind of happened after that release is that I want to say literally every third video game player on the internet is now reaching out to me on social media, whether it's Twitter, Instagram. I've had people hit me up on LinkedIn, things I haven't used in a minute, saying, okay, great, we got the game here. Now, tell me about the shadow rendering of the situation, or how many people can I have in my custom conference? All these specific questions. I just have to tell them, guys, I have an embargo for 4 more days. Please be patient a little bit longer, and I can go tell you everything. But it's hard to be patient.
Matt, Quinn Ewers and Travis Hunter and Donovan Edwards, it feels like they checked a lot of boxes and kind of maybe, every school would love to have their guy on the cover, but they went broad with their first cover, bringing the game back.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense, right? This is meant to be a national release, so you want to be able to find people that not just play different positions, but I think kind of thread the needle between documented previous production on the field and being tied with brands and parts of the country that people care about. And whether you're a Big 10 guy or an SEC guy or a Big 12 guy, that there's going to be somebody there. And I think this game, it'll be different than other games that, because there's able to be constant updates and because you have so many people that are current athletes involved, there's going to be ways to highlight other people throughout the season besides just these 3 cover athletes, which I think will be fun.
Matt, like you said, you have four days, but it's the wheels are in motion. The release date's out there. How seismic will this be for EA Sports as a company? Given, I know they've had their ups and downs. I know there was some beef about Madden, but seismically, what kind of revenue are they expecting on this?
Yeah, the thing that I think surprises some people when I get asked this question within the college sports universe is big picture. It doesn't really change things that much. This is a unique game in that it's rare for sports games to really get this much hype because generally we've in many ways we've kind of solved what it takes to simulate a sports game on a high level console system, and so people expect those. You don't typically have 10-year gaps for NHL or for soccer or for other things. So the amount of hype and built-in interest is high, but college football is still enormously popular in the United States, but it's not even close to as popular as the NFL. It's not even anywhere near as popular globally as elite international soccer is. And it's not as popular within the gaming community as some of the AAA shooters that are within EA's portfolio. So this is going to be a game that everybody expects to sell well. But this is not something where the budget is so high and the needed revenue is so high that it's going to dramatically swing the company's stock price one way or the other. This is a game that if it sells, 2 million copies and does 200 million in revenue, that's a big success. So that people will be happy about that, but that's not anywhere close to what you're going to see from Madden or EA Sports FC, and that's okay.
So there's obviously been a lot of interest. I'm more of a casual fan. I'll probably end up buying the game. I won't be somebody that has a 10-year dynasty going, though. I know you've got a lot of hardcore folks that have been hitting you up on various questions and whatnot. But what you mentioned that embargo. I don't want you to spoil anything, obviously, but what's kind of, I guess, the remaining big questions that haven't been answered just yet that people are out there in search of?
Yeah, that's a good question. The very biggest question for people that are more dedicated diehard fans of this game is what's the gameplay going to look like? You've heard me say for a better part of a year and a half that this game is not a straight Madden reskin. And I think that as cool as that trailer looked, there's going to be a community of people that are going to want more proof, right? What does this game look like after I snap the ball? What does it look like for me to make one of these pre-snap reads that people are talking about, right? How do the animations feel similar or different from what we've seen before? There's also going to be a lot of interest in what does Dynasty Mode look like on a real granular level to fully demonstrate how college football is different from it was the last time it's been released. It's one thing for me to sit there and say, yeah, we've had to put in the transfer portal. We had to have an NIL component. We've had to change the way that recruiting works for different roster limits. It's another thing for someone to sit down and say, okay, I got the controller in my hand. It's July 20th. What am I doing now to figure out who I'm recruiting and how I'm going to go spread across my resources? Is it a point allocation system? What does my scouting system look like? What kind of data am I getting? I know the answers to some of these things, and I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this. I'm going to know a lot more of them in 72 hours because I'm going to play the game this week, as are a couple of other people. But those exact details are still TBA. They will be coming out shortly.
Oh, man. You work hard your whole career to get things, and then this has to feel that's got to feel like a milestone for you to be one of the first, into the breach here on something like this.
Yeah, I mean, it feels a little surreal now. I'm sure that I'll allow myself to be a little emotional when I go into EA headquarters, right? I've had a couple developers tell me, your name's in the credits, right? And what my goal is to be. I know I can't get pictures of gameplay while I'm there, but if I get a picture of me pointing to my name in the credits, yeah, that's going to be a big you made it moment, just like it was when I held my book for the first time, or when I was able to get credentials to some events I was never able to do at SB Nation under extra points. It's a very unique experience because I still don't feel like a video game reporter. That's still not my core beat. I've still kind of fallen into this world sort of on accident. But I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad that so many people are responding and appreciative of the kind of work that I'm doing to try to get answers to questions that consumers really seem to care about.
Matt, I don't know if anybody's asked you about this, but I'm curious as well. To get the real heart of college football, will there be lawsuits? Can you sue to get out of your conference? Can you, I guess, push back on NCAA penalties? Can you refuse to pay a certain amount? How realistic? I mean, in all seriousness, though, there's a lot going on. Yeah.
No, you're not wrong, and like I understand that that we ask that kind of facetiously. I have talked to some developers about this a little bit because this game's not licensed by the NCAA, right? And there were certain things that you couldn't really do if you had the NCAA moniker, right? You couldn't really have press A to commit recruiting crimes brought to you by the NCAA. Like, the licensee is not going to be thrilled about that. Right. Now, you're still going to work with the individual schools. I don't think Texas is going to be thrilled, but maybe you have a little bit more leeway to do some things that maybe you couldn't do before. I've joked with people, with the developers, like, listen, if you want to get into AD mode, if you want that to be the GM mode for your game, I know a guy that's written some code for that. And I'd be happy to happy to sublicense some of that work if that's something you want to get into. I would not be surprised if not in this year's release, obviously, but as they continue to tweak and refine and add features to this game over the next couple of years, if that kind of high-end management doesn't become part of the gameplay, if for people that want a really granular experience, because if you want that in Madden, you're like, I want to do the CBA exactly how it is. I want to be the guy that figures out how we're going to how much we charge for hot dogs. I'm going to go move this team to San Antonio, and I'm going to get rich, and then I'm going to, if you want that world, God bless you, you can do that. You can't do that yet in the college sports world, but who knows in 3 years?
Yeah. All right, Matt, House versus NCAA is the big thing facing real college football right now. And the 22 conferences that are not the A5 and Notre Dame are not happy about the proposed first wave of the settlement. Do you see more negotiating going on back and forth to get that number more palatable? Because looks like the Autonomy 5 found a way to save themselves on money on something that is really all about them.
It's just a really good question. I've been texting about this afternoon. I'm going to have a relatively short newsletter about it tomorrow, and I'm going to continue to try to learn more about this. What I think is interesting to me is that this battle is the continuation of some really kind of ugly fights behind closed doors between the A4 conferences and particularly the non-football leagues over the last 3 or 4 years about decision making. Like, there was a lot of frustration at the FCS level and the level beyond football about Alston, about all of the blood and lawyers and frustrations about NIL policies, this, that, and the other. That's not really part of the lived experience if you're running the Southland Conference or if you're running the Big Sky, right? There's not really a gigantic bagman operation yet for Sacramento State. And I think the concerns here, maybe a little bit less so from the Big East, but particularly from almost everybody else, when they say, you're already, twisting our arm about trying to limit our championship access for basketball and baseball. You're trying to push away in a bunch of other things. It's not that we object to the settlement, and maybe it's not even that we object that much to having to pay a little bit more. It's that you did this without us. And there's a lot of frustration among smaller leagues that Charlie Baker and the NCAA head management of Indianapolis are not really looking out on behalf of the full membership, but looking out on behalf of specifically the interests of 3 people and 7 ADs, because they think that that's what's going to be necessary to keep everybody from splitting away. And I suspect they'll probably be able to get away with it because nobody's been able to really curtail something that the SEC and Big Ten really, really, really wanted since the 70s. But I understand that frustration, and it's real, and it's a continuation of fights about NIL, about fights about championship access, about fights about other lawsuits, and it's coming to a head more, right? There's already a lack of trust, I think, between many of those conference executives and their colleagues at the FCS and 1AAA level.
Matt, so many people, including ourselves, speculate, talk about the future and a big split of some sort. And generally, people are talking about, super leagues and the like as far as that goes. But do you foresee a big split when it comes to who's in charge of what in terms of the autonomy schools basically having their own set of rules and then everybody else deciding to perhaps play by a different set of rules instead of playing under the same umbrella that doesn't really go one size fits all?
I mean, I think you could argue that that's already been the case for several years. Once the Big 12 and SEC and Big 10 and ACC moved to an autonomy designation, they already have the ability of flexibility to do things for themselves that other leagues don't necessarily do. I think at this point, I'm keeping a pretty open mind about what's possible. If you have a world where we don't have scholarship limits anymore, and one team can offer 30 baseball scholarships or 25 baseball scholarships, one is offering 4.5. Should they be in the same College World Series? Should there be a minimum threshold to be able to even compete? Like, do you have to offer at least 12? Do you have to offer at least 15? Those are not easy answers, right? Eventually, the rules change so much where you really can't have a combined NCAA basketball tournament. Or do you? But you have everybody operate under completely different configurations, which is the way the basketball tournaments used to work, before the 60s, or back when the AAU was still kind of a thing. The kind of typical message board continuation of we're moving to this world where 40 schools completely separate and they call themselves the Learfield Champions League, presented to you by BlackRock Capital. I think we're probably a little bit further away from that simply because that's not profitable. But I think there's any number of things that can be expedited by this House settlement that could cause splits, right? Employment is another issue. You and I and God and everybody all know that McNeese and Texas aren't really playing by the same rules and anything else. Who knows what's going to be the 2x4 over the camel's back that forces some more substantial changes to how we align everything.
Matt, you mentioned, adding new scholarships to baseball or whatever. Is this the end of walk-ons maybe as we know it in football? Because they would potentially see reductions to allow this.
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible. And it's something that I know many college football coaches and some ADs that are close to those coaches have already spoken out internally against. Many programs view walk-ons as critical in establishing team culture, even if they don't necessarily play that often on a two deep, or it's relatively uncommon that they're meaningful on the field contributors, that they need those guys to be able to have enough bodies and depth and practice. You need those guys to run a scout team, and you need people to come in that want to be a part of this very badly. You kind of want a couple of Rudy-like folks to help as you deprogram or de-recruit some of the 4- and 5-star guys. And if you don't have those and you shrink down to an 85-person roster, which is entirely possible, that changes the way that you run practices. And for some programs, it changes the way that you recruit, because there's still a few that heavily rely on walk-ons to provide depth and eventually contribute on the field. It's going to change, I think, other sports even more. But there's a lot of things about this current financial model and current organizational model that won't be able to be sustained post-House, post-Dartmouth, post-Johnson and v NCAA. Walk-ons might be one of those things, just like we have in the NFL and in professional sports.
Yeah, I would think that there's the preferred walk-on era is different. I mean, like right now, like Cormani McClain is going to Florida, and he's right now a walk-on. But also given the fact that maybe they don't need 85 scholarships anymore. Matt, I mean, honestly, the way it's going and the way that everything's budgeted for NFL or NIL, like maybe you do run it more like an NFL roster and have more than 53, but certainly not 85 anymore.
No, I mean, honestly, if you're playing 80 guys in a given year, you're either winning every game by 55 points or something's gone terribly, terribly wrong. Coaches are control freaks. You want as big of a roster as possible, because if you do it right, that might give you more depth. But you're generally not playing 4 guys down the roster. And in an era where 20% of your team's going to transfer every year anyway, the depth piece that you recruited as a high schooler, who's going to be your 9th cornerback as a freshman, there's a pretty good chance he's not going to stick around when he's old enough and developed enough to actually contribute anywhere. Like, I think.
Oop, do we lose Matt? Oh, we lost him. All right. I'll send him in. Let's give it a second, see if he pops back in so we can wrap that up. But, yeah, Craig, I mean, I think we've talked about this briefly before, but I can see a roster being at 72 pretty easily here in the future. and them moving on and not even missing it. Because again, like he had a great point that, you know, if you get to your 80th player on scholarship, it's not probably a good year for you.
No, probably not. You are starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel, and the odds of your 84th guy being a big impactful player is probably pretty slim to none.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Matt's back. Go ahead and finish that thought, Matt.
Sorry about that. I was just trying to say here that could you, I think, shrink a roster purely on the field to say 72 and not change things that much? I think you can. I think where you will see the biggest changes are in organizational team culture, and for rosters outside of like the top 60, top 70 that might have to use those folks as developmental pieces, because there often isn't a big talent difference between player 84 and the preferred walk-on 110. That gap at New Mexico is different than that gap at Texas.
Absolutely. Well, Matt, thank you so much.
I got one more question.
One more question.
I got one more question for you, Matt. On the House case, there's so many things pointing to, just from the articles being released, that this settlement's a foregone conclusion, and obviously there's now those detractors that are voicing their concerns with how it's all unfolding. But just from your point of view and talking to the people you talk to, how do you view a potential settlement, and what do you think this changes big picture, if anything, and then what comes on the heels of that settlement, knowing that this is not the end-all be-all answer to all problems?
It's definitely not the end-all be-all, even to just the NCAA's legal problems. And based on the conversations I've been having, I would say that the odds of the NCAA Board of Governors and the major conference leaders voting on this settlement as currently structured, very, very high. I would be surprised if the terms change significantly, despite the Big East and smaller conferences, kind of pushing back. Where I do think this isn't a completely done deal is what the judges think, because there's some legal concern about this system that might make it too difficult for other athletes to potentially sue in the future, athletes that are not currently part of this case. The judge also, who has consistently ruled against the NCAA and antitrust case, has to approve this. And has to think that it's fair and that it solves the problem, and it works for all sides. And it's possible that the NCAA could vote on something and the plaintiff's attorneys are cool with something and the judge could say no, or it could invite litigation in other ways. We also have another antitrust case in Colorado that we don't know if that's going to be folded into this group here or not. I think it is probable that we have some kind of settlement, which is going to be a very significant cost change. I think this is going to drive down coach salaries. It's going to drive down staffs for programs. It's going to drive down administrator salaries. And it's also going to lead to a lot of job losses. And some of that probably needed to happen. Some of that is going to be really painful in this industry as this gets right-sized a little bit to a different budget reality.
Absolutely. Matt Brown, Extra Points. If you've not, go and subscribe to Extra Points. It's great stuff on college athletics every single day in your inbox. I can't wait for every morning when I wake up and read the newsletter. And plus, he'll have some information live on the ground, video game information, and nothing speculative anymore. So, Matt, enjoy that. Are you good? Do you have to go in and sign it? Sign your life away and.
I think that's exactly what this is going to be, right? I think I fly out tomorrow. I think the event's Wednesday and Thursday, and I think right when you walk in, Matt, first time, long time, great to see you. Sign this NDA, or I'm throwing you in the ditch right now, right?
Yeah.
You don't want people taking screenshots in the bathroom or something, or leaking things, because the game's not done. But if you could stick with me a few more days, to everybody, I promise I'll make it worth your time.
Yeah, we had a couple questions on the chat room. I'm like, guys, embargo means he can't say it. So
I'm trying. I am literally not trying to sound like a jerk on Twitter, even though every once in a while I can't bite my tongue anymore. I deeply want to be helpful. I also don't want to get taken away by the helicopters.
Yeah.
I as soon as I'm allowed to, I will answer every question I possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt Brown, Extra Points with us. And Matt, we'll talk to you again soon.
All right.
Yeah, there we go. So, so 4 more days, and we'll know some information. He'll get to play it first. That's gonna be a pretty cool experience to just walk into a video game headquarters, even though you might have security just watching you, making sure you're, not, like you said, taking pictures with your phone. Maybe he has to turn it in. So
Maybe.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
they'd be
I think
probably
I
be
would
smart
trust
to do
Matt,
that.
but
yeah, I mean, it'd be the smart protocol probably to do that if you're going to be, testing out something that they want to keep under wraps. Yeah, why let somebody's phone into the room just on the off chance? But yeah, I don't know what the security protocols are at video game studios.
Yeah.
All I know is that's a cool experience, and deservedly so, given that he was kind of the guy who went and grabbed that brass ring of like video game opportunity when there was a void there. I know, like, it feels like since I've seen like 5 different something EA Sports something account has popped up and is reporting on basically just repeating what Matt has said about the video game, and then putting up whatever else other information comes out. So he's been at the forefront of the actual reporting on that, and there's clearly plenty of people interested, so I'm excited for all those folks. I'm interested in just the details of it. I'm interested in what the game looks like. Like I've said, I'll probably buy it, but I'm not who to go to when you want like a deep dive into the bells and whistles and the ins and outs. But I am very curious to hear more of the details and what all this looks like because I know there's so many people who have high hopes for it. And I just think it's cool. It's back. I think it's great for the players. I think it's unfortunate that a couple of different waves of classes had no opportunity to be in this game. And now you've got guys who have that opportunity. They're going to make a little bit of side money on it, and they're going to have the ability to play as themselves in a video game, which not all of us can say, which I think is pretty damn cool. And so, I'm looking forward to hearing more about his experience and his time at the studios getting his hands on that game. It's going to be cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just wanted to address something real quick. You see our new graphics and we have a new software delivery system. So if you see things the next couple of days that look different, it's because we're doing things differently. Jack and Garrett have been hard at work at this. Going on about 2 months now. Would you say about 2 months we've been trying to figure out, when is the good time to roll this out? So we picked now in the summertime, but really, and we have some cool features that Jack is also working on, and I've told him he can't go out at night until he fixes them and finishes them. So I don't know if he's adhering to that, Craig, but
yeah, I can't tell from our vantage point of like what it looks like exactly on YouTube. I haven't gone and looked just yet, but it looks sharp, looks clean. Definitely, had come to a point where it made sense to kind of shake things up a little bit. So well done on all the hard work and the design and everything else that comes with that. I know that's not an easy gig, but yeah, I'm excited about. We've had a lot of growth here lately, and just continuing that and running with it, I think, is very important to do. So I'm glad that we're doing that.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I think, and there's some cool things coming up. Just chat-wise and other things that we might be able to do. Not sure when we're going to be able to do that, but got to get Garrett used to the new system. Which
bear with me.
He's done pretty well though. Pretty well for the first day before Jack is sitting next to him that day, and Jack's nickname for the next 3 days is going to be Training Wheels. So, and that's for all of us. He is officially our Training Wheels, but Jack's done a lot of good work. Let's see. Dundies says, I know you guys will be more Big 12 focused, but will you guys attend SEC Media Days since it's in Dallas? I guess it depends on the days of it. I need to look. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to maybe taking a small contingent up there. But it is one of the great things about Big 12 Media Days, Craig, is that it is very organized. Like, it's not chaotic. I mean, now it might be with, 8 teams a day. This year in Vegas, it might be a little more than we're used to, but SEC Media Days is an absolute zoo.
Yeah, but I think it's in a good way. It's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
To answer your question, I've actually thought about that. I don't even know if the deadline's come and gone for credentials, though, at this point. I would imagine that it's somewhere around here if it hasn't already passed up. So if we haven't done that, then there's zero chance, most likely. But with it being in Dallas, I've thought a lot about that. I actually intended to bring that up a little while ago, and I think we got sidetracked by all of the various off-show things going on. But I wouldn't be opposed to it. I don't know about like all 3 days, but I don't know what the opportunity looks like to be able to do that at this stage. But I think that it would be a lot of fun, and I'd imagine it's going to be a circus, like Paul said, in a good kind of way for those who like that kind of event and like seeing the coaches roll through the car wash of various interviews and the players and just all the news that typically comes from those events. So to answer your question, no as of right now, But we'll see. We'll see where the next few weeks take us.
I can tell you, we'll go to a break right here. We have plenty of time to get credentials for it. So
okay, we need to talk to Smokey and just see kind of where we are, because that's also a money thing. You got to get hotel rooms, and so there's just a lot that goes with that.
I'm going to go ahead and apply for us,
and why not?
And then we'll see. I mean, if
I swear I was thinking about this like a month ago, and I just never thought to roll back around to it.
It's actually cheaper for us to go
there than the Las Vegas. Absolutely.
Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Although Alan Samuel's House of Travel coming back aboard and is hooking us up like they did for the Super Bowl. But even still.
I'll tell you this. I think we may have helped the Big 12 get back to Arlington or Frisco more specifically, though, once we talked to Brett Yormark and let it be known that, you know where you're holding the combine right now? Like, that's where they used to hold media days. It wasn't always at Jerry's World. It wasn't always at big old AT&T Stadium. And so that was news to him. Based on his reaction, and so I think that maybe that will mean that we can get to a more centralized location, even with the new Western schools, that makes sense for everybody, which I do think the DFW area makes sense for everybody, even with the departures of Oklahoma and Texas. So maybe they come back around sooner. But, yeah, that would definitely be cheaper to just go up to Dallas than to go to Las Vegas. But thank you for asking. That's a legit question and something I had thought of about previously.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going through it right now. When we come back, I give Craig a short break as I talk golf with Mark Carnival of PGA Tour Radio on what was a fantastic PGA and the way it closed out. Xander Schauffele making a putt on 8, then making a birdie on 18 to win the whole thing. That's coming up next. This is 365 Sports.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. And only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America. 5 locations in Waco. And the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Welcome back. 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, joined by Mark Carnival of PGA Tour Radio. And Mark, So much of the outside sport, it's this way in college football, it's this way in a lot of sports, it's this way in the PGA with the whole live and PGA thing. Is so much stress and negativity. I would say that yesterday with the Schauffele and Bryson DeChambeau thing and Xander Schauffele winning with a putt, the last stroke of the entire tournament won it was a really good feeling for the PGA overall and golf as a whole.
I would think so. As I've said recently in a number of different interviews that I've done, it seems these days there's more drama off the golf course than there is on the golf course. And obviously yesterday we had drama on the golf course that was good. It was good for the game of golf. And look, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you want to see the best players playing against the best, whether they're live or here. But, yes, I would say that was a good thing. I think fans in general, even though I think Bryson probably made a few more fans this past week that maybe were not fans of his prior to it. But, no, I was very pleased, and I think it was very good that Xander Schauffele won for many reasons, not just because of that, just because of that, the stigma that he hasn't won a major yet, was in close a number of times. But the golf was spectacular this week, Paul, and I think that really should be the big story.
Yeah, it was. It was fantastic. And, I don't know. I can't remember the last major we had that was this tense, coming down the stretch. And for Xander Schauffele, a guy who is the perpetual runner-up and, lots of top tens and, a few seconds and thirds and, just had not broken through yet. How big of a relief had to be for him?
Well, I'm sure it was, and it was interesting. I talked to him after the round, and he bogeyed the 10th, which was basically playing as the easiest hole on the course, that par 5, and then all of a sudden, he was throwing darts at both 11 and 12, making back-to-back birdies. And I asked him, I said, it looked to me like the look on his face throughout the whole day was like, I'm not going to let this happen. And even particularly after that, I just think his attitude was great. He was more aggressive, I think, yesterday, which I think players can, when they get in that position, not that they're not aggressive, but it seemed like Xander maybe wasn't just trusting himself and just going for it. I think without question yesterday, he just went for it. It's like, as I said, he kind of nodded his head when I asked him. I said, you weren't going to let that happen again. And he kind of agreed with that. And I think that's good. I mean, it shows a lot of mettle. And all those experiences obviously helped him into that situation. But I think that, as a golfer, you're just trying to put yourself in that position as often as possible. And I think he just said, you know what, I'm going to get it done today.
How difficult is it for someone like Xander Schauffele to look, they watch the leaderboard, they know what's going on. It's not like you can completely block it out, but knowing that Bryson DeChambeau is as hot as he can be, and that DeChambeau's strategy is now, I don't necessarily need to go win this thing. I just need to make sure that, hope that Xander Schauffele loses it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think all players at that level, they're trying to win. I don't think they're really all that worried about whether they finish second or third. I mean, the goal is to win a championship. I think, and again, it was interesting because coming off 10, there's a big scoreboard short of 11, and he was looking at it, and he saw what Xander was doing. He saw what Victor Hovland was doing. He knew at that point he had dropped out of the lead because I think Hovland maybe had birdied something to get to 20 under. I can't remember exactly, but I think there was a transition there, and Hovland was a few groups ahead of him. So, you could hear the roars throughout the golf course. But the reality was he had more holes left to play. And I think that did it affect him? Sure. I mean, you wouldn't be normal if you didn't think about it or you didn't, kind of see what was going on. And then, he just took control.
Bryson DeChambeau was as locked in as you could be down the stretch, and he's someone who's played really well this year. Do you see him continuing kind of on the arc that he's been on as we get into the next majors?
I mean, I don't, assuming he stays healthy, yeah. I mean, why not? I mean, we know he's talented. He plays this game a little different than others, than most others. But I also think that it takes unusual, and I've talked about this, and it's sort of my only, I wouldn't say negative part about the Live Tour is that you're playing against the same guys every week, but what are you playing for? I mean, most of these guys it's all guaranteed money. So I think he's different. I think Brooks is different. They're not your typical player in the sense of, it's I guess it's hard to explain maybe, and maybe I'm not explaining it correctly. But there's kind of an edge to them, if that makes any sense. And, even though they've chosen to go where they go, and that's fine. And I have no problem with that anyway. But I think the competitive side of it is a little different. So I think it takes a different person, a different type of player, to be able to come back and compete in a situation now that they're not so much familiar with. And I think Bryson is certainly one of them that can do it, and because he does it his way. And same thing with Brooks. I think it's unusual, but no, it wouldn't shock me at all if he continues to play well, and who knows? I mean, he could possibly win at Pinehurst. It's a long golf course. There's no reason why he couldn't, but as we know, week in and week out, these guys, in order to do that, things have to be right. Your golf game has to be right, and things have to come together. And certainly it came together this week for Bryson, as it did at the Masters, and he seems to be in a good spot.
Who was your biggest positive surprise and negative surprise from this last weekend?
I think it's kind of all positive, Paul, in the sense of I think it was a good week for the game of golf. I mean, it was competitive out there. It was a golf course that was very receptive, and I would have liked to have seen Valhalla a little firmer and faster, and I'm sure the PGA of America would have as well, but it wasn't. And these guys were able to take advantage of it. I don't know, disappointment. I kind of thought Rory was going to win 3 in a row like he did back in 2014. But I think at the end of the day, are you disappointed in Sahith Theegala? I mean, he hasn't been there that much. I think he was there, but I would say the biggest surprise was Victor Hovland, without question. I mean, there's a guy that early in the week that, hey, I wasn't even thinking about playing here. I mean, his golf game went from, without question in my mind, the best player in the game after winning the FedEx Cup back last August. So, I mean, he was having a hard time breaking 75. But he found something. Now, of course, he went back to the teacher he was using before he made another switch to go work with someone else. He was the biggest surprise. Disappointment? I don't know. I mean, with everything that kind of went on, it was a kind of a surreal week with everything that happened. I think at the end of the day, I think the guy that probably should have won, deserved to win, did win.
Yeah, and you were on tour, this. What can this be like finally breaking through for Xander? Does this give him a new confidence going into future majors, or does it not affect guys like that? If he's so far beyond the athlete that I'll ever be, so I may not understand what it's like. So,
well, I mean, I think he's always confident. I mean, if you're not confident as a golfer, then you're going to have problems. I think it certainly helped him. He's proven to himself that, after a number of disappointments, he can do it. Is it going to mean he's going to win a bunch more majors? I don't know. I mean, there's so many good players out there, Paul, that it's hard to label it that way. But I do think it's going to help him going forward. Every time, I've always believed, every time you play around the golf at the professional level, or any level, so to speak, you have to take something away from it, whether you win or lose. You have to take a positive going forward that's going to help you going forward. And I think this week is a great boost to Xander. We know he's talented. He's shown his talent year in and year out. It's definitely going to help him with the confidence once he gets there again. But you can only do so much as a player. I mean, you do your best, but sometimes other guys do better than you do.
Absolutely. Well, Mark, thanks so much for hopping on. I always enjoy getting to talk to you when we do. It's been a little bit since we've had you on the show.
It has?
Yeah, it's been a little bit, but thank you so much. And we'll probably reach back out when the U.S. Open comes up here again here in a month.
Oh, no problem, Paul. Always happy to join you. Thanks so much.
All right, that's Mark Carvell of PGA Tour Radio with us here, and Craig, welcome back to the show.
Hi, nice to be here.
Yeah.
I was just waiting for a word on what golfer was going to join LIV and the whole realignment of golf. That's that's the tie-in here. I guess all the realignment and upheaval within that sport. No, I didn't watch. I don't typically watch golf at all, but I did see where there were some debates between fans on the difficulty level or lack thereof of the course and whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. And obviously saw that Schauffele had won it, and me and Smokey had quite the duel with our teams.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. He won by one shot.
He won by Schauffele. Like, Schauffele was the difference because you had DeChambeau and he had Schauffele.
Yeah.
And Schauffele's putt won it for him, and now you are officially retired from picking, right?
I think so. I think that was about as high as I can expect to go. I've won before, but it's been a little while, and that was like going out not on top, but without having won the championship at the end. I don't know how you could have had a better outing than I did, because that was a tightly contested battle there. But yeah, I mean, it's a interesting time for the sport of golf, and I am intrigued by some of the storylines that are going on. But yeah, it seemed like an interesting tournament, and Xander Schauffele crushed my dreams, and that's okay. So if I don't play again, we'll just put the blame at his feet, I suppose. But not bad for a guy who doesn't even follow it, huh?
No, not
Be
bad.
Right there in the thick of things.
Not bad at all. I watched the last round, or the last part of the last round with Smokey yesterday, and your sister, Jennifer, who is, I got to tell you, if we just live stream Jen watching sports,
she's nuts.
It would be a fun thing. Like, she was even half invested because she was cleaning up his disgusting kitchen, which the words I was told used by Jennifer.
Oh, yeah.
But she was cleaning up the kitchen for him, and she just kind of kept popping in. But she's so enthusiastic and gets so into everything.
Yeah, she does. She loves sports, and yeah, she's very much about the cheering and the yelling and doing all that and getting super invested. And I think she gets some of that from my mother as well, who manages to always pick the underdog and then always ends up upset and doesn't understand why. It's like, well, you picked the last place team in the league to beat the best place team in the league, or you were hoping for, that to happen. And so, yeah, you're setting yourself up for disappointment, but the whole family's passionate about it, obviously. And she's one of those that definitely, it doesn't really matter the sport. Like, she just gets into it. So yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that, because I've been around her enough. I was around her with the Mavericks game the night before, and know how invested that she can get. So yeah, she's fun to be around.
Yeah, absolutely. So want to circle back to our topic from the beginning of the show, Craig, on the NCAA and House and how the small schools are kind of fighting. We talked about that a little bit. We can talk about the next. Garrett, what break are we on?
We are up to break 6.
We're up to break 6. So have we played that one yet?
No, I got break 6 and break 7.
Okay, play break 6 right. Well, no, I got to call Machota in 15 minutes. Never mind. I'm kind of stuck here. I ran out of stuff, Craig. It's the summertime. It's slow.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you about that.
Yeah,
but
I know.
I guess we can circle back to something if you want to.
Yeah. Oh, no. I do have something. God, Lee, he's gone for one damn day, and I'm turning into him. Can you guys give me a couple seconds while I cry? Is that all right?
I don't know. Sure, I guess.
That was as close to behaving like him as I've ever come before. No, I wanted to have fun with this and talk about this. So at the Big 12 baseball tournament this year, they are basketball's tried this thing where Emory went and only got one dish down his gullet before he said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. But at basketball, they had like signature dishes for at the concessions for everybody. The baseball tournament is making it signature hot dogs for everyone. So this print is, again, a little bit too small. So let me go back to the original tweet and go through it. So All right, the Horned Frog dog will be a Texas chili foot-long hot dog topped with taco meat, shredded lettuce, shredded cheese, diced tomatoes, and purple cabbage, served with a side of salsa verde.
So everybody's got their own hot dog.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Texas. See, I don't need a whole bunch of, like, it's not like a hamburger to me, my hot dogs.
I'm a mustard and relish guy. You maybe throw some onions on it, or
no, I don't like onions.
But I mean, again, mustard and relish to me kind of gets it done.
Yeah, I don't like relish either.
Oh, really?
I'm a very simple eater. I think I've said that on this show before. So yeah, taco meat on the hot dog and lettuce and cheese and tomatoes and purple cabbage. I mean, the purple cabbage obviously makes a lot of sense. So, okay, yeah, the Horned Frog dog. I would try it. That sounds okay.
Okay. And again, I'll be haunted in therapy by what just happened beforehand, forgetting the segment I wanted to do exactly now and then responding exactly like he would. The Jayhawk dog, a Texas chili foot-long hot dog topped with sweet, cheesy corn and smoked brisket.
Yeah, I don't.
I could get behind
brisket
that.
Big in Kansas?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It is? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've very rarely ever been there, and it was when I was younger. The corn part with the hot dog and brisket.
That's like the two things Kansas is probably is cows and corn.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I guess it makes sense. It doesn't really sound all that great, honestly. I don't know about corn and hot dogs and all of that together, but okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Try it, I guess.
The Knights dog, foot-long hot dog. Piled with, by the way, they're all Texas chili, so that's the sponsor. Don't want to knock you guys. But foot-long hot dog piled high with warm sliced ham, juicy pulled pork, melted Swiss, and topped with a spicy mayo. So it's like a Cuban sandwich on top of a hot dog.
And this was who?
UCF.
Sorry, I've been distracted by the price tag for these. Have you seen the price tag for these? $17.
Nope.
$17. Sorry, $16.99.
Yeah.
So not quite $17. $16.99 for these hot dogs. So yeah, you better be loading those bad boys up. So Texas chili. So they're all Texas chili, right? Like you said. Yeah. Sliced ham, juicy pulled pork, Swiss. I don't know about the spicy mayo, but I like everything else. That sounds pretty good, actually. Yeah. I think that might be my favorite so far.
All right, the Mountaineer dog is a croissant dough stuffed with an all-Angus beef hot dog, pepperoni and mozzarella cheese, then baked to golden perfection and served with a side of marinara.
I mean, I'd definitely try that. There's not a lot of other stuff on there, like veggie-wise and everything, and I guess they're going for the pepperoni roll, which is obviously a West Virginia hallmark, so that one makes sense in kind of connecting the brands there. Some of these others, I'm not like, what's the connection with TCU? Is just there's purple onions? Or purple cabbage, I should say. Yeah. I don't know why that's really TCU's outside of that. Yeah. But this one with West Virginia.
Well, UCF, it's like a Cuban sandwich. You get those in Florida.
That makes sense too. This one with the pepperoni roll nod. That makes sense too for West Virginia. Yeah, that one sounds pretty appetizing. I'd give that a shot.
Yeah. Okay. So now that brings us to the Pistol Pete dog. Foot-long hot dog served in a bun with a layer of cream cheese, then topped with Texas Chili Company chili, shredded cheese, and crust Lay's chips.
It's whatever.
Look, that one sounds to me like they think everybody in Stillwater is stoned.
Yeah, I mean, crushed chips is really the only thing that separates that, and I guess the cream cheese. So yeah, I have no desire to eat that one, honestly. That doesn't sound all that great to me.
Here's another one. As we go to Lubbock, they clearly also think everybody in Lubbock is stoned. But
based on my experience.
Foot-long hot dog nestled in a bun with a colossal mozzarella stick that's split in half and smothered in warm marinara sauce.
I mean, is that a nod to, somebody from Lubbock will have to remind me, Spanky's and the cheese sticks they have there? I think that's the right place. It's been so long. But that's actually a kind of a cool nod to Lubbock if that was in the thought process there. But, I mean, I love mozzarella sticks. I guess the hot dog's in that? Is it in the mozzarella stick?
Like the mozzarella stick is like split over top of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd try that. I mean, that sounds it sounds like a hot dog and mozzarella sticks with the marinara. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's That's definitely a stoner dog, though. Like that's like all of these are definitely like somebody just got real high. It was like, what can we come up with? You know, it'd be cool, man. Sprinkle some potato chips on there. No, yeah, that one's fine. It's not near the bottom like a couple of the others we've mentioned so far.
Yeah, the Sooner Dog. And this is obviously the last time you'll be able to get this at a Big 12 event, which is their last. This will be their last Big 12 event, right? You know.
Yeah, I mean, we're at the end of the semester. Yeah.
So, a Texas chili company footlong hot dog topped with grilled onions and American cheese. So very simple.
Yeah, I don't know what's really all that special about that.
No, that seems to be the one of like
a hot dog with onions on it.
Yeah, and cheese on the bottom. So, all right, the Wildcat dog is a foot-long dog piled high with succulent pulled pork and topped with crispy fried onions and Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce.
Okay, yeah, again, not crazy about onions, but crispy fried, that's a little bit better. And I don't know what the connections are. Like the football concessions made a little bit more sense. Those are a little bit more unique and personal to the brands themselves. But these are a little bit more off the radar, so to speak. So, yeah, I don't know if there's any connection to K-State here, like via the pulled pork maybe or the crispy fried onions. But, yeah, that's fine. That's all right.
All right, and then two more here. The Bevo dog is a Texas chili company smoked jalapeno cheddar sausage served in a fresh hoagie roll and topped with smoked brisket, grilled onions, and spicy barbecue sauces. That one I would definitely try.
But no caviar?
Yeah, I guess no caviar. No caviar on that one. And then finally, this one should come as no shock, the Bearcat dog. Craig, I'll give you $1 billion. No. There's no way you would get this wrong of what's on the Bearcat dog.
Skyline chili of some sort.
And shredded cheese.
Yeah.
There you go. So that one makes the most sense. I have not, I guess that's all the teams that are in the Big 12 tournament because not everybody, of course, makes it. So, but yeah, that is the hot dogs that you can have if you go to the Big 12 tournament in Arlington.
Well, I mean, I like that they're trying something different. I don't know what all the other leagues do if they try to do unique dishes or anything. I don't necessarily vibe with every single one of these, but yeah, I think it's cool that they try things like this and try to make it unique to each school, and particularly when they kind of hit the nail on the head when it comes to really nailing that. I feel like if you were doing you should have somebody at the Big 12. Was it the football championship game where they have all those options? Is that where
the basketball has it? Yeah, the basketball.
Okay, yes, the basketball tournament.
Yeah.
I think they might have had a couple for whoever was participating in the Big 12 football championship game. But I think there's it's pretty out there. The Skyline Chili thing's obviously the Cincinnati choice if you want to really represent them. But I think you got to get the Cougar tails for people to buy from BYU. Have those as options. And I think there's definitely some ways to have even more fun with it. But I think it's an interesting idea to kind of play around with the food alternatives. And then here we are talking about it. So I don't always believe in if you're talking about it, it's great. But I do think it's something of interest that otherwise we wouldn't pay any ounce of attention to or discuss in any form or fashion. So yeah, a little 10 minutes here on the food choices I think is a worthwhile investment.
Yeah. Dustin Archambault, a jalapeno popper chili cheese dog is really good with cream cheese, too. So there we go. Dogfather in Tulsa. I've been to Dogfather in Tulsa when I was there for the NCAA tournament, and you are right. It is quite good, Dustin.
Yeah, I am not the person to ask about, foodie stuff. I mean, I definitely can go to places and have a valid opinion, but when it comes to, the particulars of certain things. I am just plain Jane when it comes to my food. So, yeah, I am not the culinary expert by any means.
Yeah, I think that kind of falls to me here among the two of us. But Justin R., Cuban sandwich hot dog that is disrespectful to the birthplace of the Cuban sandwich.
I love Cuban sandwich, a real Cuban sandwich. I love those. Those are amazing.
No, anytime I'm in Florida, anytime. That's one of the first things I go do. And
that's for UCF?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, is that like an Orlando thing as well? Is it just a Florida thing?
It might be, but like
It's
I would
a Miami thing to me.
I would say that Tampa and Miami are the two places that have the.
Oh yeah, Tampa too.
Yeah, Tampa and Miami are the two places that have the best. By far. There's always there's a place in Tallahassee called Gordo's that I loved. It was a great Cuban sandwich place, but again, it was probably about 10th on the overall Cuban sandwiches I had throughout those other two cities.
Right. I just didn't know if that was a whole state of Florida, thing, or if that was more of a.
It kind of is. Thing. I mean, like Hooters is from Florida. You can get one there.
But Tampa definitely has that market cornered as well. But yeah, that doesn't sound like the most apt. Give me a regular Cuban sandwich. Just give me a regular Cuban sandwich. I don't need the hot dog. Just give me the nice. Yeah.
Look, part of the reason I love the movie Chef is because it's all about making Cuban sandwiches.
True, yeah.
Like you throw that plot point in there, and like all the other stuff that was good is fine, but like that part was like, oh, this is a movie about Cuban sandwiches. I don't care what happens. They could just read the recipe for 2 hours. I'm good with that. When we come back, John Machota of The Athletic on the Cowboys and their rocky offseason, we'll call it. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right. Day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you. Red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC. Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. John Machota of The Athletic. And John, the Cowboys begin their mini camp on Wednesday, and I know it's Wednesday and Thursday. You have media availability, and this has been a kind of off-season of rocks getting thrown at the team, and mostly due to their own decisions. How much will the roster kind of be formed for maybe some gaps that you think would maybe show up here in the next couple days of workouts where they haven't addressed a position so much?
Are you talking about like players that need to step up?
Or no, players that like positions they maybe need to fill that they haven't done so well with?
Yeah, I mean, defensive tackle still is number one on the list for me, and I know many will argue running back is right there with it. I just feel like you can probably find a running back that can get mixed into a committee and, you know, be your second or third leading rusher right before they cut down, you know, to 53 in late August, early September. Defensive tackle, I don't know about that. Teams aren't really trying to let go of good defensive tackles, and certainly not just letting them walk on the street. And so I just maintain, I think that the defensive tackle thing, it'll play out until maybe they get to Oxnard, maybe even the preseason, to where they'll ultimately see that they probably have to go out and make a move for a veteran, and probably by doing that they'll have to trade some type of a pick in next year's draft. Obviously, they're not going to part with anything high in the draft, but maybe a mid-round, late-round pick like they did for Jonathan Hankins a couple years ago. It's tough to find good defensive tackles to begin with. Don't get me wrong, but they haven't really. They're expecting they need a lot from Ozzie Smith, and we haven't seen anything from him to know that he can take that next step. And he's coming off for shoulder surgery now, and he's got a new defensive coordinator. So that's the one position that, to me, like the other ones, I can see a path to where things work out and they're able to get by, or even be maybe even above average in some of their weaker spots. But defensive tackle is the one that they needed to bring back Jonathan Hankins, and when they didn't, you know, all the other bargains are pretty much gone, and so they're in a tough spot now there.
John, a lot of people feel this way about running back because they didn't really address it other than bringing back Zeke Elliott, but they're going to be a running back by committee, and the Cowboys will do their best, I'm sure, in the offseason to tell you that that's a good plan and that was the plan all along, but by committee is something that happens in any sport when you don't have a plan.
No, absolutely. And it happened to the Cowboys in 2018 when they decided to go into the season like that at wide receiver. And they went out and signed guys like Alan Hearns and Deontay Thompson, and they thought that they would mix them in with some of the younger guys like Cole Beasley and Terrence Williams. Well, you get, you know, almost midway into the season, you see that's not working, and then it turns around and they end up trading a first-round pick for Amari Cooper. Now, thing about running back is that the value just isn't there at running back, and so you wouldn't have to give up a first round pick to get any type of running back. You probably wouldn't have to give up a second or third to probably get a decent running back. The issue with the running back by committee for me, and I think a lot of others would agree, is the fact of you like that running back by committee if one of the, let's say, question marks is a guy that you had drafted this year in maybe the third or fourth round, or maybe last year in the third or fourth round, kind of where they took Tony Pollard, where yeah, you know, right away you probably didn't know exactly what you had there, but you see the upside there. They didn't draft anybody in any of those middle or early rounds the last 2 years. So because of that, I mean, I'd say right now I think it's going to be kind of a trio deal. And so as of right now, with what's on the roster, that trio is probably going to be some combination of Ezekiel Elliott, Rico Dowdle, and maybe Royce Freeman. Yeah, you know, maybe it's a guy that's not on the roster yet. But yeah, I agree with you. Usually when you have a committee, it's because you don't really have a guy.
John, Jerry Jones I think he's done his best to try to walk back the all-in thing. How do you feel that part of the PR campaign has gone?
Yeah, see, I don't know that he has walked it back to the point where it would not surprise me if he doesn't make a joke or two about it in that opening press conference at training camp, because, you know, he kept bringing it up during the pre-draft press conference, and then, you know, during the draft, you know, when they would have their press conferences at the end of the night and he would talk to reporters and stuff. And I really didn't get the sense that he was really trying to walk it back. And I don't think it's a great move, because it's angering fans more than anything. Because he even knows that it's not the same. His definition isn't the same as the majority's definition. The majority's definition is that you make so many moves in the off season that everybody knows that you've gone all in. And they clearly haven't done that. They've done the absolute opposite of that. They've stood pat more than anybody in the NFL. And so I don't think it's a great move, but I think that it's Jerry thinking that, you know, he's kind of being cute, he's kind of having fun with it, and frankly, I think he's got pretty thick skin where it doesn't bother him that the fan base gets frustrated. I think for most other people, they'd be like, hey, let's not say that anymore. That's kind of rattling the cage. It doesn't need to be rattled. But I don't know, maybe Jerry just finds almost some fun and some sport in it.
They've also had this policy, John, of not extending contracts when everybody else does. But you know, they watched A.J. Brown get an extension last year and kind of this year and set the market again. They watched Amon-Ra St. Brown do that. kind of like in the same day. CeeDee Lamb needs one. They've watched 2 different quarterbacks now go, and there'll probably be 2 more in like Trevor Lawrence and Tua, or Tua and Trevor Lawrence before they even get to Dak's contract extension. Why does he still like this deadlines make deals thing when clearly it's putting them up against the wall compared to other teams?
You know, I know that has been their MO for a decade now. And so what I'm about to say is going to be hard to believe. But I do think that we could have seen a different offseason had the postseason gone differently. But because it was such a gut punch, and because it was such a stunning blowout and a show of maybe, you know, these top 3 guys, just having them isn't going to be enough to get us to where we need to go. You know, because the argument I make is, if those 3 guys that are up for contracts right now, let's pretend that these 3 guys are all wearing Dallas Cowboys helmets, and that's Patrick Mahomes, and that's Chris Jones, and that's Travis Kelce. It's easier, I think, to get those deals done because you're like, yeah, these guys are delivering Super Bowls. They're the face of our Super Bowl run. When you have Dak and CD and Micah all on the field, all healthy, all really in the primes of their career, and then you suffer that Green Bay game. Now, obviously, it's not all just on those 3, but because of how stunning that was, I do think that factors in with Jerry, where it would not surprise me if he doesn't try to get these guys to possibly play out this season. You know, I think that there's a decent chance that CD gets done maybe right before training camp starts, or maybe during the first week of training camp if he doesn't show up. But there's also a part of me that wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't do any of these deals and goes and sees how they do this year, goes into next offseason and is like, well, if they don't make a deep run, then maybe he's willing to move on from Dak, and maybe he's willing to, well, we'll franchise tag CD and we'll drag it out another year offseason where guys aren't signed, and this is more talk in the media about, well, how are they going to get these guys signed, how are they going to find their next quarterback. I think that that's a possibility that we really have to think of now that we are almost to June and none of those contracts are done.
So, CD, I think, is going to get done. Mike is going to get done eventually. But do you think there's any real chance that they really push it with Dak?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. I think that had to be a real possibility right when free agency started and his contract wasn't done, because that's the time right before free agency when it would have benefited the team most, because you would have been able to, you know, push a lot of that money down the road, and you would have been able to be more active in free agency and make some more moves, and probably, and you know, it's the Cowboys, they wouldn't have went out and signed, you know, Chris Jones, but you know, they would have brought back Hankins, and maybe they brought back a couple other guys or signed some other players in that level. For them to really just do Eric Kendrick, it just showed you that, yeah, they're really, and I say they're because it really is Jerry, because I think he's the biggest driving force on this. I think there is an avenue where he has Dak play out this year to see, you know, can he put up a huge year and put the team on his back and have a deep playoff run? And if he doesn't, then there's that possibility that he does get to free agency. And you and I both know that if he gets to free agency, there will be a team, if not several teams, willing to pay him at top of the market. And if the Cowboys aren't willing to do that, then yeah, the strangest part to me is that we just don't see franchise quarterbacks at Dallas Cowboys put on another team's helmet. But for Dak Prescott, it's a real possibility.
How much of this is on Dak compared to how much of this is on them?
Them being the Cowboys, like Jerry?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's just so many people involved. So obviously, you can cut off some chunks for everyone. I mean, Dak he's a great leader. You couldn't ask for a better leader. Couldn't ask for a better guy on and off the field. And he's obviously one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league. And there are, you know, 20 teams in the league that would love to have him. But there is also that part of it where when January's come around, he has not played his best ball. And if you don't think that he can take you, you know, to a Super Bowl, and maybe that's the way Jerry feels if they don't get a deep playoff run this year, then maybe it is one of those deals where almost like, you know, kind of in Detroit, it's not like the Lions parted ways with Matthew Stafford because he wasn't a good quarterback anymore. It just both sides kind of felt like, hey, you know what, it's probably not going to work here. And then what happened the very next year after Matthew Stafford gets traded, you know, he wins the Super Bowl with the Rams. And so the only difference here is that there probably wouldn't be a trade, so the Cowboys wouldn't get a Jared Goff or anything in return. But there's a possibility that happens.
Yeah, I just, you know, Them going into the next couple years with the salary cap room that they won't have, because of the dead money on Dak's deal, because they had to make that decision. To me, it's kind of like the Russell Wilson and the Broncos, right? It's a little similar to that. Maybe not as long term, but still.
Yeah, no, it is for sure. But the one thing that you will have if you're Jerry is that you will have this, whatever it'll be, 9 years with Dak as your franchise quarterback. And if you had never even gotten to the NFC Championship game, and they clearly had some talented teams, it's not saying that Dak's not a good player or Dak isn't a quarterback capable of winning Super Bowl. It could be one of those things where you make change just to make change because you don't think that, you kind of feel like you're just running in circles, that something major has to change here, and then that forces you to go in another direction. And, hey, when I'm saying this, I'm speaking on what I think the team is thinking and what they could potentially do. I'm very aware, and I would hope that they are too, that there's a far greater chance this goes worse than it goes better. And so you might think that you're on that hamster wheel at, just making the playoffs and then maybe winning a playoff game and then going home. It could be a lot worse. We obviously know that in the post-Troy Aikman era between, when Aikman retired and when they found Romo. So there's no guarantee they even find another Romo or Dak. But that could be a situation that Jerry's willing to take a gamble on.
John Machota of The Athletic. John, thanks a lot, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Take it easy.
There you go. So, bad Cowboys offseason continues, and minicamp starts this week. When we come back, the top 5 players who did not enter the portal, this is 365 Sports.
Memorial Day sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco is pulling out all the stops with incredible deals you won't want to miss. Picture yourself behind the wheel of a sleek and powerful 2023 Dodge Charger or Challenger RT. Right now, you can drive home with a whopping $14,000 off MSRP. That's right, $14,000 off. How about a 2024 Ram 1500 Limited Crew Cab 4-wheel drive for $11,500 off the MSRP? That's right, $11,500 in savings only at Allen Samuels of Waco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
It's time for Paul Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome back. Paul Catalina's Top 5 today, presented as always by Texas Beef House, but also a special thanks to Black Rifle Coffee Company. You can find their link in the description below this video. We are happy to have new partners anytime. And you know what? The Texas Beef House link. You can also get that there. And don't forget, on Texas Beef House, stick 'em 10% off your first order. Top 5 players who didn't transfer. About 33% of my top 5 seems to center around the transfer portal, whether it's basketball or football, or what teams could benefit, what teams didn't do well, what teams could do more, what's wrong with Dabo Swinney, those kind of things. But this one, we're going to reward some loyalty here. So, numero 5, Carson Beck at Georgia. This was a toss-up for me between Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers coming back at quarterback. I think Carson Beck's just done a little bit slightly better than Quinn over the whole of his career. It's so tough. It is splitting hairs because Quinn obviously got his team into, or was a big part of getting his team into the playoff last year. Carson Beck not in the playoff. Of course, the only loss was right before when they lost to Alabama. But Carson Beck should be the top quarterback ranked next year in college football and is the odds-on favorite to be the first quarterback taken in the 2025 draft. So for that, right now, I give him a slight edge. A slight edge, Texas fans, over Quinn Ewers, but it is it's like Mystic Dan winning the Kentucky Derby, just by a nose right now, and we'll see how that plays out over the season. Number 4, Texas Tech running back Taj Brooks. I went through this. I was trying to find who the best running back in the country was, in my opinion. Is it Quinshon Judkins at Ohio State now? I don't know. Is it Jaden Ott at California? There's a lot of electric playmakers at the running back position. Is it Ollie Gordon? You know what? I took Taj Brooks over Ollie Gordon. I know, Oklahoma State fans, that's going to make you wildly angry. And again, just by a nose, but I really like Taj Brooks' full skill set and what he can do, and the way that the offense should run through him this year in Lubbock should be very interesting. Again, I'm not trying to court controversy here, and Texas fans and Oklahoma State fans are already mad at me, and Oklahoma State fans, for some reason, stay in a perpetual state of upset and angry with me anyway, but I'm going to go with Taj Brooks. Again, Mystic Dan here, just by a nose. Really like what he can do, really like what he can do coming back, but a really good crop of running backs coming out this year in college football. Hate for them that the NFL doesn't value them the same way anymore. Number 3, the best defensive player overall on this list. There's one more defensive player, but we'll get to him in just a second. Mason Graham, defensive tackle, Michigan. They are churning these guys out, whether it's Mozzie Smith or 3 of the guys that got drafted this year. This is the best position that Michigan has year in and year out. They have dominated along the defensive line. Mason Graham might be the best of all of them. He's back to wreak havoc on the Big Ten. We'll see if they can get back in the playoff, given the wholesale changes that they have across the board in that roster, including the head coach and Sharon Moore. But Mason Graham is not going to be a problem for the Wolverines this year. This dude gets after the running game like nobody else in the country, plus gets after the passer as well. If you remember in the playoff, the big stop on a 4th down that flipped the game back for Michigan to get them into the championship, that was 55 right here, Mason Graham. Number 2, one of the cover boys, Travis Hunter of Colorado. Cornerback, wide receiver, not sure where his future lies in the NFL, but let's not get there yet. There's no doubt. Look, he may not be the top cornerback, and he's not the top wide receiver by any stretch of the imagination, but he's really elite at both positions and gives Colorado a true weapon on either side of the ball. And if they are going to get better this year, it's going to be because we see more of Travis Hunter. Remember, he was injured for a good stretch of the season last year. Now, I don't know how much of a difference he makes in that last year of the Pac-12 because their schedule was so tough, but Travis Hunter is definitely one of the best players in the country and coming back to play for Coach Prime. And number 1, This is the guy who is the best player in the country coming back, in my opinion. Luther Burden, wide receiver at Mizzou. This guy can do it all and will be a menace to defenses in the SEC. Brady Cook, his quarterback, is back. That's another year of the two of them being in rhythm together. Expect to see a lot more from Luther Burden. They made some moves in the running back transfer portal as well to help that Mizzou offense continue to be as good as it was last year. I think another year with all these guys together only means more numbers for Mizzou, even if the record may not reflect it, because, again, it's the SEC. Every year is different, and every year is tough. But Luther Burden, the number one player coming back in the country at Mizzou, you cannot mess with this guy. He is really, really elite and probably be a top 5 pick in next year's draft, given everything he can do, even though stereotypically he's not a big dude. He's about 5'11", 205, one of the smaller receivers. He's not a Justin Jefferson type body-wise, but he's a playmaker all over the field. That's going to do it for us. Craig and I are going to wrap it up right now. All righty. There we go. That's the top 5, and that's going to do it for us today. We're back again tomorrow with another show. Edgar Thompson, Orlando Sentinel, will come on. The Gators have had kind of an interesting little push here in the transfer portal of late, picking up Elijah Badger at wide receiver and Cormani McClain, and that last one is what I'd like to talk about the most, Cormani McClain, because he's maybe the most intriguing, weird story of the transfer portal offseason to me.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the more interesting storylines, and how he pans out, I think, will be really the most interesting thing. Not so much the impact that it has on Florida. Obviously, if he lights the world on fire and that wins them games, then that'll be of note. But I think it's the tale of Cormani McClain. Is he what was said of him about him at Colorado? And just a guy who's going to waste his talent at the college level? Or is he a guy who needed a change of scenery and a little kick in the butt, maybe a little bit of public embarrassment to go be the player that he was rated as originally? You know what I mean? So I think he's kind of at a fork in the road where, maybe he just wastes that potential and that talent, or maybe that lit a fire and he goes on to be a great player for the Gators. But either way, just being a walk-on, that's just part of this interesting time that we live in right now, where you see things like that. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's great to be back. Y'all guys did a lot of good work the last few days. The graphics look great, and the studio looks great. And just after 4 days away, you're in that routine. You get a couple days off, and then Monday hits, and you're like, all right, you don't really feel like you're interrupted. When it's more than that, and it's 4 days just randomly, it just feels weird getting back to everything. Yeah. But I think now we got a show under our belts. We'll hit it tomorrow and be right back into the routine of things. And, again, for anybody that missed it at the top, Smokey's doing well after his surgery. Don't expect him back in the next few days, but definitely by next week, I think, at the latest would be a spot on.
Candidly, and he would tell you this, and we kind of talk about it, when the catheter is out, he can come back. Right. Mostly, and I know that, he says, I'll be fine, I'll get used to it, but
it's not about you.
It's not about him. Yeah. It's about the fact that we spent 2 full days cleaning the studio, and I'm not going back. I'm not doing it for that. That was one thing we did not have to clean up.
Yeah.
So.
Well, he's doing well, and surgery went well, and I had a couple people reach out. So thank you to those of you that did that. I think Kim was one of them that sent me a text. So appreciate you, Kim, as always. And, yeah, we'll be back to 100% normal here pretty soon, God willing, and just appreciate everybody's support the last few days.
Yeah, I can tomorrow I'll put up, it's too late now, I'll put up the picture we took at his apartment yesterday so you can see how he's doing.
He's laid up?
We were standing up. He moving around, a lot better than I thought, just given the fact that, surgery sucks.
Knowing him, you know how he is. That's not really surprising that he's up and moving around, no matter if he's in extreme pain or not. That's part of the problem, is you got to kind of put a stop sign up and force a stop sign. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He'd be here today if he had his choice. And then he'd go pass out, walking to his car because he'd be in so much pain. But if it was up to him, so we're having to police that. But he is doing well. He'll be back in the next few days for sure.
Absolutely. All right. Have a great night, everybody. Don't forget about 365 Sports tonight here on the local CW at 10:30.
Please hit that like button and that subscribe button. A lot of you have here recently. We're moving on up, and we do appreciate that very much. So continue to do that if you haven't already. we'd be much obliged.
Hit up Black Rifle Coffee Company as well, and Pin Pause, but Black Rifle sent us some gear today. So, again, a great company, all about helping vets and awesome coffee. Black Rifle Coffee Company. So go check them out as well. The link is in the description, and please use that link and go on and subscribe. Michael DeHart is he's a big fan of the company already. So he sent me a picture on the text line for them as well. All right, that's going to do it for us. Have a great night, everybody.